Hello, everybody. Welcome into Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the podcast you come to when you're finally ready to take fantasy hockey seriously. My name is Nate Grudniblink. I'm the creator of Apples and Ginos, originator of the Zero G Draft Strategy. And in this episode, Blake and I are continuing our annual projection series in which we review our projections for every fantasy relevant player on all 32 NHL teams. Let's get it. And of course, I have your friend and my best friend. It's Blake Creamer. Blake, how are we feeling tonight?
Awesome, buddy. Man, that music jacks me up. Like Nate and I have cameras on each other when the music's playing, and I don't know about your thoughts there, Nate, but I'm basically losing my mind over here. I remember one time Nate was headbanging so hard that like his hat came off, or like he hit the microphone and they were all discombobulated. Remember that?
Yep. Yeah, I pulled the headphone jack out of my computer.
Hell yeah. That's how we get the biz on the A&G podcast here. But yeah, I'm excited to get into this one with you, buddy. Am I? That's okay, maybe. We got some bits and pieces, but again, folks, thank you so much for checking out all our content. This is unbelievable. I think we have this one and then two more, if I'm not mistaken. So love this series, love doing this. And then September is big time content coming right up. So I'm excited, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing great. We are getting to the end of this. This is probably some of the least interesting fantasy teams I'd say that we'll cover as a four team group. But
everybody just dropped off, Nate.
Yeah.
Right? No, what are you doing?
But I think that's important for fantasy is because I think there's actually a lot of value you can find in these teams that everybody's kind of not thinking about so much and not taking the time to investigate as deeply as they are some other teams, just because there's, you know, some sexy names or what have you on some of the bigger teams. But this group of teams, I do think there's a few things that we're going to pull out in here that are going to be super useful for fantasy managers everywhere. Let's not waste any more time, Blake. Let's dig in. Let's start with the Philadelphia Flyers. Key departures here. Bobby Brink traded away to Minnesota towards the end of last year. Emil Andre and Samuel Ersson leave in the offseason here. Obviously, nothing too crazy here. That's not too big in terms of the losses. Key arrivals, Porter Martone. Basically, Brink went out so that Martone would have a spot in the lineup, and he was incredible when he arrived. And definitely getting steamed up draft boards in the early mock drafts as a result. Joseph Wall, Simon Benoit, Nola Chari, some depth signings there as well. Joseph Wall probably going to get some 1B work behind Dan Vladar. I think they don't want to overwork Vladar. Maybe a little bit less work for Vladar next year than what he saw this past year. And so Wall is the guy to provide that kind of steady 1B presence as he's done in Toronto before. How are we feeling about the roster construction going into the season here, Blake?
It's kind of mid, to be honest. Just the off-season transactions are a little bit mid, but losing Brink he was more of a depth piece on this team, so that's not a big deal. Ersson, see you later. But the arrivals, yeah, Porter Martone is really the key piece here, and it's not nothing. Like, this is a player that's going to jump right into the top six and have a chance to kind of show his stuff. So I'm excited about that, and I do think Joseph Wall is a good piece here, just as a potential tandem, kind of 1A, 1B with Dan Vladar. I think that shores up their goaltending even more, and it was already really good with Vladar. So, it's too bad we could have seen Carlson on this team. My God, we could have really jacked up the excitement with the Flyers here. I did like that swing a lot. I thought that's the move of the offseason, really, like them signing Carlson to the offer sheet. So that was interesting. It didn't happen, but Porter Martone is a nice consolation prize.
All right, let's dig in behind the bench. Rick Tocchet returning for his second season. Basically, he's just going to be asked to do it again. He's going to have to prove that he can sustain last year's success. I think it was a bit of a surprise how well the Flyers did make the playoffs, win a playoff round. So, yeah, what can he do for an encore? Definitely not exactly one of the more loquacious coaches league-wide, except for maybe when talking about how much he hates Matvei Michkov's guts. I think he generally is excited to go on at length about that, and sometimes unprompted. So I think the biggest task for Tocchet is just the fact that this team doesn't really have a lot of elite talent. Like, that's why they went after Carlson, right? They were looking for that elite 1C that could make a difference and be that kind of centerpiece to build around moving forward. And I think you look at this roster top to bottom and you're still looking for that piece. So I think that's something that Tocchet is tasked with here. Do you think that he can get more out of this roster, and a roster that is kind of lacking a piece that, a lot of other playoff teams do have?
Yes, I do. And that's not really saying much, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, yeah, like, first off, their power play, which we'll get to, was dead last in the league in goals for per 60. That there's a lot of headroom there, and Tocchet's got to figure that out. But in terms of their 5-on-5 stuff as well, like, this team was 24th in the league in expected goals for per 60, 20th in actual goals for per 60. So they were decent at finishing. But I mean, the real, thing that Tocchet was brought in here to do was to shore up the defense. And he did that. He made this team into kind of an elite defensive force at this point. Like, they were 3rd overall in expected goals against per 60, 5th overall in actual goals against per 60. So that'll play, right? Like, but it's Rick Tocchet's world famous low event hockey, folks. Oh yeah. Change the channel. The Flyers are on, folks. So yeah, I mean, I think if he came in, he did his job. You have to consider it a success. They went to the playoffs. They won a round. That was unexpected, but we've seen this show before, right? Vancouver Canucks under Rick Tocchet, famously low shot, low event team, high efficiency. And that's a dangerous game. You don't want to be doing that too much because, especially in the playoffs, like, space is at a premium and you're not really able to get to those dangerous areas on the ice and finish your chances. And the Flyers kind of ran out of juice there. And to your point, they don't have a true superstar to really kind of, game break that situation there. So all that to say, things I've read from Rick Tocchet as well, I think that he wants to let the leash out a little bit and needs to let the leash out a little bit. We've got some good offensive players here that, they were stifled by this kind of defensive, smothering, low event hockey that we talked about. So yes, there is room for improvement at all strengths. Maybe not defensively. So, but offensively, they've got a lot to work with there, but it starts with, how Tocchet is going to coach this team and if he's going to put his players in better positions to succeed. And I think he will. And, we'll talk about the lines, but I think there's some bits and pieces in the top 6 as well, maybe top 9 that can actually do a little bit more if that does happen.
All right, let's talk about this power play. Doing research for this was pretty depressing. 0 players with more than 3 power play minutes per game, but 9 players with more than 2. Basically, that just translates to a whole lot of split power play, which has been thoroughly debunked league-wide as the worst possible thing to do with your power play. Yep. My wish cast that I put in here, because I want to talk about it, is 5-forward power play with Zegras, Konecny, Martone, Michkov, and Forster. I just think that 5-man group would absolutely get to biz and figure it out. If you just left those guys out for at least 90 seconds every time you had a power play, I think it would just definitively get better over time, and they would be able to figure out at least like a respectable power play, even if it's not even top half, but like in the teens, let's say. Let's set our sights on something a little bit more realistic, but honestly, I think it's most likely just going to be another year of 1A, 1B nonsense.
5-forward power play on Philly? You're out of line. All right. You need to stop that immediately. Although I don't know what the better option is, honestly. But this power play was league worst. Okay. So obviously they don't need to be the Oilers. Okay. Like, can you just get even a mid, like, jump up 10 speed, be the 22nd worst power play in the league? That will make a huge difference for fantasy and all these guys that we're interested in. And plus, we're going to need a 1A thing. And I tend to believe, maybe at least at the beginning of the season, while Tocchet still has kind of this stuff in his mind, that they will try and run more of a true power play, even if it's just like 55-45 or 60%, 40%. I could see that, and that'll play, but keep the guys together. Like, I read an interview with Tocchet as well, where he admitted that he thinks that he and his staff sort of overcorrected, overloaded a bunch of these players with a bunch of information, and they were constantly changing and making those units different. So there was no, familiarity. And I think everybody just kind of got spun around and they didn't really know what they were supposed to do out there. So I believe they're going to simplify things a little bit and stop with the coaching. And hopefully that makes a big difference. But yeah, you're right. Like who's the point on this power play? I've got Drysdale there. And I think he's not a great offensive defenseman. I'm looking forward to talking about him, but it's not great. They have great forwards, but I am a little bit concerned about the quarterback there.
Yeah, I think Drysdale's one of the guys that'll get those looks. I mean, they tried Ristolainen there. I think that was probably because there's a lot of talk about trading him, and so maybe they're just trying to cast him in a good light there.
Yep.
But like that is scraping the bottom of the barrel if you're putting Ristolainen on your power play unit, either power play unit, really. Sanheim can get out there, but he's definitely not a guy who's going to elevate anything. He's just going to try to pass it off and stay incognito at the top of the zone. So I don't like any of their defense options, which is why in a best case scenario, I think they would go 5 forward. Don't think it's going to happen, but I think it would instantly improve their potential. All right, let's dig in on the projections. Christian Dvorak is the de facto 1C here. I have him for 19 goals, 28 assists, 47 points. You have him for 16 goals, 29 assists, 45 points. I think we see this pretty similarly. Definitely not an exciting player. Got hot at times last year, mostly when playing with Zegras. But they did try a few different line combinations. That's something I will say I do expect to happen again. I don't expect the lines that we've projected here, or at least I've projected here, to be consistent throughout the year. I do think that they'll move stuff around. I think, honestly, the most consistent line might be the third line with Noah Cates and Matvei Michkov. That was a very consistent pairing, often with Bobby Brink, but then Alex Bump kind of moving into that spot for us here. I think that's probably the way that the third line goes more often than not, but I do think the top 6 especially will get mixed and matched a whole lot throughout the course of the season. What are your thoughts on that? Do you have any interest in Dvorak beyond just a passing streamer?
No, not really. I did last year. I had him on my squad for a little bit. He was getting power play. He was playing with Trevor Zegras. But yeah, we're going to talk about Zegras in a second here. But it sounds like they're going to move him to center. So I think that bumps Dvorak down to the 2C. That makes sense to me, especially with the contract that Zegras just signed. I think that's 1C money, buddy. So all that to say, I think Dvorak is a good kind of defensive presence on a line here, but I don't think he's going to touch 51 points again. That doesn't make sense. He was definitely over his skis there. On ice shooting percentage at 5-on-5, or what was it? Yeah, 5-on-5. Even strength story was like 14%. That's ridiculous, right? On a team that's really generating nothing. So I think there's a really good chance that comes down. And we still, I got him for 45. You got him for 46. This is a player that's going to get some minutes and be an important player for the team, but not necessarily for fantasy.
Yeah, I definitely think you can call Zegras the 1C if you want. It's really just, I was using Konecny as my barometer of what the first line is, but if you want to use Zegras, totally fine with that. Konecny is the next player up. I have him for 27 goals, 49 assists, 76 points. You have him for 29 goals, 43 assists, and 72 points. I like Konecny a lot. I think he will likely have a bit of a bounce back this year. It was not his best year under Tocchet relative to previous seasons, and I'm interested to see if that's just a little bit of an aberration or if that is a sign of things to come for Konecny. That being said, he'd been so consistent in years prior. I do kind of think that it's most likely just an aberration and some adaptation required there. I think the potential of him playing with Martone on the other side might add a skill element to his line that I think had been missing in some cases, especially last year in terms of his line mates. So all told, I think Konecny gets a little bit of a bounce back here. I think he makes a fine pick in your mid rounds.
Yeah, I love Travis Konecny. I think I'm pretty high on the guy, actually. I mean, you've got a higher projection for him, so I think we're kind of bookending what I think he will do. But this is a player that had a 68-point season in one of just a terrible offensive environment, so that's kind of a positive for me. He paced for 72 points with only 14 power play points. That's ridiculous. This power play in Philly, oh my God, it's been bad for so long. No one can come in here and get this thing cooking. Maybe Matvei Michkov. I don't know. You might want to put him out there. But anyways, Travis Konecny, I think, is a really nice pick. And I think that he's lost some value because in our APL ADPs, he's like 80. You get Travis Konecny at pick 80. My God, that's excellent. Like this is, I think, 70-point floor. So yeah, all that to say that this is a guy that I think will have a bounce back. Like you said, I'm also projecting him to play with Zegras and Martone. That's the way I'm seeing the first line. Trevor Zegras is the 1C, Konecny and Martone. And I think that's a wagon. That's a true top line to me. And that's good for all three of those players if that does happen. I think it's not great for players like Owen Tippett and Tyson Forster, which we'll talk about a little bit later, right? Because they end up playing with Christian Dvorak. But yeah, I'm in on Travis Konecny. I think I'm going to have him on a lot of my squads. One thing I do want to say about him that I am a little bit concerned about, and Talkit is not helping this, is his shot totals are cratering a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, I mean, last year or in 2024-25, he didn't shoot very much either, but under Rick Talkit here, yeah, it was like his lowest shot totals in a long, long time, right? So, and he had high efficiency to sort of offset that. So we'll see what happens. I think maybe there could be a little bit of regression in goals, but maybe he's got a boost in assists there. That's kind of the way I'm seeing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually really do like that ADP for Konecny. If he's going to go in the back end of the 7th, I'm absolutely in at that price because I do think in and around 70 points feels pretty safe for Konecny this year. Porter Martone, I have for 34 goals, 29 assists, 63 points. You have him for 27 goals, 31 assists, 58 points. We were talking a little bit about Martone. He's been steamed up in drafts. He's going higher than Konecny, almost exactly 10 picks higher than Konecny in APL mocks. And that feels high for sure for him to be going kind of back end of the 6th. I think that it's mostly due, I think it's obviously very much due to how good he was when he arrived last year, and he was terrific. There's definitely no taking that away from him. Terrific shot totals, bangs to like whatever you want from a fantasy player. Porter Martone was supplying it, and that stuck in a lot of people's minds, and a lot of people are just kind of projecting that out now over a full season and expecting huge things. I think that's possible. I think that Martone is definitely good enough to have a great season this year in a best case scenario. I think that maybe like his 75th percentile and above seasons make him worth this selection, and I think his high end makes him even a good pick at that point in the draft. The problem is that it's still a very young player. It's still a coach in Rick Tocchet that I don't think will tolerate the roller coaster of a young player as much as some others might. And so I think you would be wise to build in for yourself in any kind of season-long projection, at least on Porter Martone, that there will be some ups and downs throughout the course of the season, and that it won't just be 20 minutes a night for the entire season. Power play 1, the power play actually works, as it seems a lot of people are doing.
Yeah, I mean, I might get some, hate for this, but like, I'm not here for it. I'm not here for Porter Martone at pick 70. It doesn't make sense to me. Can he hit that? Yes. Can he smash that? Yes, I think so. But I don't know. I just feel like there's too much variance here. We only saw 9 games in the regular season and then 10 playoff games. Right. So, and it was great. It was really great. Right. This is I don't have any issue with the skill of the player or hit the trajectory of his career. I think there's so much runway there. This guy's he's a special player, right? And he's more than just a power forward too. I want to, again, like praise this man a little bit. He's a slick playmaker. He's got really good puck skills, great shooter, and he has those power forward attributes as well. But I mean, at pick 70, there's guys like Lucas Raymond, you know what I mean? Or like, what else? Like there's this crazy, like Svechnikov, Sergachev, Miller, Marchenko, Bratt, these guys are all around, like Drake Batherson. I would take all those guys over Porter Martone. So I think, when a guy comes in, plays as well as he did, he won people their leagues last year. This is one of those guys that came in and you picked them up off waivers and he helped you win your league. So, I think that people are steaming him up a little bit because they're expecting that. And I just think there's way too much variance to do that. And we're in the business of winning here, folks. Okay, we want to win. And if you pick Martone at pick 70 and he doesn't hit, that's fine. You can absorb that loss. So I like the swing there, especially if you've been kind of safe with your first few picks. But I don't know. It's just not for me. I'm not interested in drafting a rookie. Like, who's to say he, even sticks with the team the whole time, right? Like, we don't know. I imagine he would. I'm projecting that he would, but he's 19, right? And this is Rick Tocchet, and this is still a team that's trying to figure out their identity and find out how to put the biscuit in the basket. So I love the player, I love the profile, but I don't want to pay for a potential breakout before it happens.
Right, Trevor Zegras next up. I have him for 23 goals, 49 assists, rounding that down to 71 points. You have him for 24 goals, 46 assists, 70 points there. I like Zegras a lot. I think this 70-ish point pace feels pretty safe to me. He had like a pretty hot start last year and then cooled off over the course of the season. I think he could even get a little bit closer to where he was at the beginning of the season and potentially sustain that a little bit better over the course of the season. I think the addition of Martone, if Forster is healthy for the entirety of the season, I think he adds a shooting threat to Zegras' natural playmaking ability. I think there's a few ways in which Zegras just has more offensive support in the lineup this season, and that could lead to an even better season for him overall than he posted last year. I think I'm pretty in on Trevor Zegras this year as being one of those guys that if this team does take a step offensively, it's got to be Zegras leading the way.
Yep, that makes total sense to me. I mean, I just dug in a lot on the Flyers and Zegras in particular. And yeah, he had a great year. There's no question. Career highs, right? 26 goals, 41 assists. Bang, that'll play. And 23 power play points on the worst power play in the entire league. So, you know, if instead of being 32nd, they get up to 22nd, how many power play points does Trevor Zegras have? We can, even if we're being conservative, we can throw 3 or 4 on there. Like I think he's got a lot of ways to even have hit that 70-point plateau, right? But you know what we already know when we watch Trevor Zegras, this guy's more of a playmaker and chance creator than he is like a finisher, right? He's not really going to do that. He's really good at creating chances and things like controlled entries. Like if you look at his micro stats, but yeah, it's like you said, he has more players to play with. I think Martone is a big key for guys like Zegras and Konecny, right? Whoever gets to play with them or both of them, I think that is going to be a net positive for them. So I think that if the Flyers can stabilize this power play, 70 points is absolutely reasonable for Ziggy this year. And I'm into it. What's his ADP? I don't even know.
Just outside the 10th round in APL mocks.
Oh, buddy. Remember when we called him a sleeper last year and it hit? Hell yeah. That's all I got. Sorry, Nate. Yeah, but yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm into it. I think that he's definitely worth that pick. The 70 points feels pretty safe. Anytime you can bank a 70-point player in the double-digit rounds, I think you got to feel pretty good about that. I believe he's triple eligible on Yahoo as well, which just adds to the mystique.
The lore.
As well. All right, Tyson Foerster. I have Tyson Foerster for 31 goals, 25 assists, and 56 points. You have him for 27 goals, 21 assists, rounding up to 49 points there. I am 6.8 points higher on Foerster than you are, so it's a pretty decent difference there. I think I'm building in potentially a little bit more power play role. I think I believe in the shooting talent perhaps a little bit more than you do as well. And I think that he is going to find his spot in this lineup. Basically, whenever he's been in the lineup, it seems like the minutes have come shortly thereafter. I do think he's projects to be more of a Tocchet favorite than some of the other guys we might also like on this lineup. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's all kind of contributing to why I think Tyson Foerster might hit the 30-goal plateau this year.
Yeah, sure. I mean, how many power play points did you get him for, Nate?
I got Tyson Foerster for 13.2 power play points.
Okay. So it's not that big a difference here. I guess, yeah, because I've got him on line 2. My line 2, Tyson Foerster, Christian Dvorak, Owen Tippett. Just the Tippett. Yeah, I feel like there's a little bit off the top there. I mean, I like the idea of loading up a top line there, the way I've described it. And, you know, one of the negatives of that is that I think the second line isn't as balanced. And so I guess that's sort of what's happening with Tyson Foerster there. But I absolutely agree with you. I think that this is a guy that, you know, is in Tocchet's good graces, right? And I also think like he's really good on the forecheck. He's got a great shot. He's just a dog out there. And we could get him at value here because he was injured, right? Like this is a guy that had a pretty nasty, gnarly arm injury. So we don't exactly know the way he's going to line up here. Like he only played 29 games under Rick Tocchet, but got out to a rocket start too, like 10 goals in, I think, the first few, I don't even remember what it was like, first 21 games or something like that. This guy's, is that right? I don't know. Oh, yeah, I got it. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm going off my mind, and then I'm like, is that right? Oh, yeah, because I was just looking at the Philly Flyers today. But anyways, yeah, I think it, to me, he's going to be a streamer to start. Like, are you drafting Tyson Foerster? Like, are you kind of putting, some stock into him being a big part of this offense here in Philly?
Yeah, I think ideally you'd have an idea of what the power play lines might look like if he's been getting a shot alongside Zegras at even strength, those kind of things before you take that swing. If I get news to the opposite of that going into the start of the year before my draft hits, then I'd definitely go somewhere else. But I think he's worth a late round swing just to see at the beginning of the year. I, I think there's a number of players that I would say that about. So I'm not saying
Yeah.
like Tyson Foerster is the guy that I'm going to take with my last pick every time this year, but he's at least a guy that I'm considering. All right. Owen Tippett next up. 27 goals, 25 assists, 52 points for me. 26 goals, 26 assists, 52 points for you. Pretty tight on Owen Tippett here between the two of us. I think kind of what you see is what you get with Owen Tippett. This is a guy who's going to hit a lot. He's going to shoot a ton, but he is going to struggle to actually put the puck in the net with all those shots at a consistent rate. For 11.5% shooting percentage, it's just not going to be enough to get him into the stratosphere that we had hoped for originally. And I think we have the data on Owen Tippett at this point. Like, it seems like every year he has that one like 10 or 15 game stretch where everybody's like, see, he could
Yeah.
be that guy. He could be 40 goal scorer Owen Tippett. And it just never falls that way over the course of an entire season. And I just don't believe at this point that it ever will, unless he manages to go on a massive shooting percentage bender at some point, which is possible, but it's not something I'm going to bank on. Tippett is, he's kind of in that Forster conversation, but it's just a player that I've seen enough from that I don't really believe in much of a ceiling, where at least with Forster, I have the what if possibility.
Yep. I remember talking about Owen Tippett like 2 years ago. This is a guy we were kind of on because the individual shot and chance generation is elite, right? But what we've learned over, the course of a few years here is that this guy's the ultimate chucker. All right. He does that. He'll shoot the puck from anywhere. He doesn't give a damn. But yeah, like really low efficiency player. He definitely prioritizes volume over quality. And that shows, right? And I, like you said, I think we've seen enough data to kind of maybe put a small L label on him as that type of player. I think his fantasy value is going to be really dependent on who his line mates are, right? And what his deployment is. If he gets to play with Trevor Zegras, let's say Trevor Zegras plays as a 2C and he's got Owen Tippett there, like that's a much better situation for Owen Tippett. If Owen Tippett finds himself on power play 1, yeah, now we're looking at a little bit of a ceiling here. But I tend to think that his ceiling was probably what we saw last year, right? Like 28 goals, that's a tie for a career high. I mean, big hits, big shots. It's just, yeah, I don't feel like Tocchet trusts him enough kind of to be a bigger part of this offense here. So yeah, it sucks because if you want to, get jacked up about hockey, go watch some Owen Tippett highlights. This guy's out of control, right? Redheaded beauty, unbelievable. My fellow ginger, but yeah, I just think that there's really not too much ceiling here, and he's not the type of guy that can sort of create it himself.
Owen Tippett, the Timo Meyer of Frank Vitranos.
Wow. Okay, buddy. This is a new bit, folks. Nate's really been cooking some up. You're really gonna like this.
Noah Cates, the 3C here for the Flyers. 17 goals, 27 assists, 44 points for me. 20 goals, 24 assists, 44 points for you. See it pretty similarly. Don't think there's a ceiling here. I think he's a better real life player than potential fantasy player. I think he does some things that we like for just NHL play, but a lot of that doesn't translate necessarily to what we need for fantasy. Not a big time shooter. Decent hitter, I guess, is something you can put in his corner. But again, probably not a guy you're going to take or even stream likely unless it's a pretty deep league.
Yeah. I love when Nate just says all the analysis and you're leaving me the scraps, Nate. All right. What the hell am I supposed to say about Noah Cates? He's a good looking man. That's for damn sure. I'm just looking at his face right now. Very attractive, beautiful head of hair. So yeah, definitely shout out to him. But yeah. One thing I was saying to you offline is I do want to give players like Noah Cates their flowers. Again, it's not going to be a fantasy guy that we really care about. I mean, again, decent periffs, that's fine. 47 points, get the hell out of my sight. But Noah Cates is valuable to the Flyers because he's very good defensively, very good, like well above average, and he makes it easier for the players that he's playing with. And one of those players that we're really, really hoping gets going, Matvei Michkov, because we both projected the third line the same. Noah Cates as the center, Alex Bump on the left, and Matvei Michkov on the right side. So I do like that line, but the problem is going to be deployment.
For sure. You did do an Alex Bump projection, 17 goals, 19 assists for 36 points. Again, I don't think there's a lot of ceiling here. Maybe due to injuries, he goes up the lineup and sees some short stretch of fantasy relevance, but I don't think it's something we can bump on. I think we can safely move on to Matvei Michkov. 22 goals, 38 assists, 60 points for me. 26 goals, 37 assists, 63 points for you. I think we're both pretty high on Michkov's talent. I think we are both pretty low on the likelihood of Michkov receiving more than, 15 and a half minutes this year on a consistent basis. And that's just going to hold him down. I think he's going to be very efficient with those minutes. You saw him put together a good run at the end of the season, put together a good amount of points towards the end of the season. By all accounts, he's having a good summer. He's getting back to Philadelphia early, putting in training work. I see people posting like pictures of him and saying, "Oh, look how much weight he's lost." Like Tocchet's gonna love this guy this year. I'm not gonna buy into the Twitter hype in August necessarily, but I do love the player, and I do think it is just a matter of opportunity for Michkov to really pop off. I still feel, unfortunately, pretty sure that Rick Tocchet isn't just gonna forget all about last year this year.
I thought you were buying into a narrative, Nate. I was getting kind of excited about that. Yeah, we'll try harder. Okay, damn it. All right, what are you doing? Sorry about that. Matvei Michkov, like all the talent in the world. We all know that, right? And I think it's easy to look at this season and go like, oh, Matvei Michkov regressed, right? Like, well, what happened here? It's like, I don't, when you look under the hood with Matvei Michkov, like the offense is still elite. The offense is still amazing. The only thing that regressed was his opportunity, right? He wasn't put in any opportunities to do anything. I mean, Tocchet took his ice time down by almost 2 minutes, dropped his power play usage by like over 30 seconds. What the hell? Dead last power play. Michkov's on the bench having a Coke and a smile. Damn. I mean, it's crazy, right? But I mean, it's well documented that he came into camp not in shape. And I read, and I'm not sure, like I hadn't heard this before, but I read that he had kind of a minor injury in the summertime that sort of affected his training. So yeah, he showed up a little bit out of shape in camp. Whatever. We all do it, right, Nate? Not on Rick Tocchet's team. You need to see cheekbone when you show up to camp. We need to. You need to be a skeleton with skin on it. That's what we want to see. All right. What's happening with Rick Tocchet's cheekbones? I don't know. He's a good-looking man. I will say that, but yeah, the cheekbone's a little dangerous. Don't get too close. Anyways, I think I don't know what I'm doing here, but I think there were some other issues too with Michkov, like playing above the puck, right? Getting leaving the zone before he's supposed to. Those are things that Rick Tocchet doesn't like. Just talk to Andrei Kuzmenko. Okay. Maybe they should, talk to each other. Michkov, I mean. But anyways, I think that the underlying offense still amazing. All the chance and shot generation is there. Like the interesting thing about Michkov is like he's a great individual shot and chance creator for himself, but he's also really good at creating for others. Like he's an elite offensive player, but these guys got to get they got to get him out there for more minutes, get him in a position to succeed. And I just don't see how that happens this year when you got a guy that is clearly almost jumped him right off the hop in Porter Martone. And you got Tyson Forster back in here. How's it going to happen? Like where does Matvei Michkov fit in? Like, is it Owen Tippett maybe that takes a ride down on the third line and we get Michkov up on the second line? I'd be here for that. Right. That actually makes some sense to me because Dvorak and Forster are not puck transporters, right? Michkov is. So maybe that would be something they'd entertain. And I think they absolutely should, but Tocchet's main thing should be getting this guy some minutes. And I just don't see it happening. And if that's the case, yeah, like it's rough. You got him for 60. I got him for 63. This is a player that I think has 90-point potential in his career, but it's just not, I'm having a hard time seeing it right now.
Yep. Yeah. I've got a little bit more to say on Michkov, but I'm going to save my bullets there. Let's get through the defense here as it may be. Travis Sanheim. Sanheim I have for 9 goals, 30 assists, 39 points. You have him for 7 goals, 30 assists, 37 points. I did a projection on Ristolainen just because he had that stint on the power play, and yeah, it was not worth doing. 4 goals, 21 assists, 25 points. Pretty bad. Cam York I have for 6 goals, 24 assists, 30 points. You have him for 6 goals, 25 assists, 31 points. Jamie Drysdale I have for 9 goals, 25 assists, 34 points. You have him for 10 goals, 32 assists, and 42 points. So you're actually considerably higher on Jamie Drysdale there. I don't think we need to say too much about the other 3 guys. It's really just about, do we think Drysdale's actually going to get some power play one time and stick there? That's really the only way that any of these defensemen become fantasy relevant for more than streamer purposes, in my mind. I do think Sanheim in particular is streamer relevant, especially in deeper leagues, but yeah, Drysdale's the only guy who could potentially make a power play 1 role work long term. I think it seems to me like you might be buying into that a little bit more than I am with your projection here. How many power play points did you end up with for Jamie Drysdale?
14.
Yeah, I have him for 9.5. So that's pretty much that's more than half of the difference there for sure.
I mean, to me, I just can't see 5 forwards. I don't. Like, anyone can do 5 fours, but like, does it make sense when you got a guy that in Jamie Drysdale that has, just come through like one of his first fully healthy, stable seasons, right? And the other part about Jamie Drysdale that was really nice this year was he played better defensively. Like, he kind of added that to his game a little bit under Rick Tocchet. And I've just read a lot of good stuff that I like to hear because I do buy into narratives. And Drysdale is feeling good. He's ready for kind of an increase in role, and I think that's at least where they want him to start on an offensive role. I'm not saying power play 1. I'm projecting that there, but yeah, all that to say, like, when I did dig in on Jamie Drysdale, what I found was he's not that good of an offensive player. Like, not as much as maybe, like, I think that the bias is out there. Like, oh, Jamie Drysdale is this great offensive defenseman that hasn't been given a shot. It's like, actually, no, like he's got some bits and pieces, right? But I just don't think that, like, he doesn't shoot. He doesn't really generate any chances. And he's kind of league average in like things like shot assists and total chance contributions as well. So that said, this was the first year in this new defensive system under Rick Tocchet. So I don't know. Am I making a leap here? Like, yeah, okay. So now he's got the basics, the defense sorted out. Now let's focus on the offense, right? Because you do have guys like Sanheim, Cam York, and others, right? That I think obviously can play well inside of Rick Tocchet's system here. So I think if any defenseman is going to pop off, it's going to be Jamie Drysdale. But I'm also baking in the fact that he'll play power play 1 for, at like a power play 1 defenseman. And that's how I'm getting to the 14 points. I also want to shout out Travis Sanheim a little bit as well. Like, this is a guy that I think fits in the mold of, like, a 4th or 5th defenseman. I think he is draftable. If you're at the end of your draft and you're like, oh man, I kind of whiffed on don't make that face. Damn it. God, I watched our last thing too. I'm just the disdain coming at me here. Unbelievable from NGN. But yeah, Travis Sanheim, he's got good blocks. This guy, he had 37 points last year. He had 44 2 years ago. So that'll play for like a 4th or 5th defenseman to me. He is playing enormous minutes as well. So you could do a lot worse, but yeah, those are the 2 I'm mildly interested in. I don't know that I would draft Jamie Drysdale. God, that would feel bad, wouldn't it?
It would feel pretty bad. Yeah. Drysdale's most power play production came in his age 19 season with the Anaheim Ducks, where he had 12 power play assists and no power play goals. Last year, 9 power play points. The year before that, 7 power play points.
He's about to pop off, Nathan. Oh, yeah.
I just don't see it with Drysdale. I agree. Like, the underlying stats paint the picture of a pretty average offensive defenseman in the league. I don't think that if the Philadelphia power play starts to work, that Drysdale is going to be a key piece of that. I think the most likely scenario is that they do kind of keep trying all 4 guys at some point throughout the year, or maybe even trade for somebody else.
Like, I could see that. That makes some sense.
Yeah, I think all those options are on the table, and that probably just ends up holding Drysdale down from even what modest outcomes he might be able to achieve given a full complement of power play 1 minutes.
What a sentence.
That was a mouthful, but let's get through and let's get some top 3 targets. Blake, give it to me.
Give it to me, Neil. Ah, Neil. We got Konecny. Oh yeah, imagine how happy Neil would be if he drafted Konecny at pick 80. He'd be stoked. And that's me as well. I can relate to Neil on this one. We talked about the value there, so that's why I'm putting Konecny as my numero uno. I got Michkov as my second target here. I think we've made the bull case here. Needs deployment. Will he get it? That's the question. And then Trevor Zegras is my third. Like I said, I'm projecting him with Konecny and Martone, and I think that's going to equal a 70-plus point season at value. Book it.
All right, for myself, my number one is Michkov. Obviously, we went through a lot of the reasons why it's hard to believe in a high-end outcome for Michkov, at least in terms of a base projection. The thing for me is, like, the rate stats are still so good, everything looks so good under the hood, that really all it's going to take is for Michkov's talent to shine through this year. And I'm never going to be a person who disbelieves talent when I see it demonstrated both on the ice and in the stats. And so Michkov's going in the 12th round in APL drafts. I think he'll go undrafted probably in some more casual drafts after the season that he had last year. I honestly, I'm going to take another swing on Michkov, at least in one draft somewhere this year, because the ceiling outcome is genuine league winning kind of stuff. Like, it's possible. I don't think it's probable, but I do believe it's possible that Matvei Michkov proves himself to Rick Tocchet in some way this year and actually gets up there and is a catalyst for that power play working, is a catalyst for, an elite Trevor Zegras season, plus, whoever it is, Konecny or Martone on the other side. Like, all those things could happen in a best case scenario, and I want my 12th round picks to have that kind of insane outcome as a possibility. So going to keep Michkov there. Trevor Zegras, for the reasons we mentioned, I really like Zegras as a safe double-digit 70 points in the bank. I just think that's super valuable for a lot of fantasy teams, especially if you've taken a swing a little bit earlier on and you want to bank some points a little bit later. So love Zegras there. And then I will shout out Tyson Forster here. I do think Konecny's probably the right name to put on this list, but I wanted to put Tyson Forster there as Blake's trying to give me the stank face back. After
No, I smelled something here. I don't know what's going on. I'm in a basement right now. I don't know what's happening.
All right, let's move over to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh Penguins. Key departures here. There are a few of them. Anthony Mantha, Parker Wotherspoon, Ryan Shea, Stuart Skinner, Noel Achari. They have added Nick Robertson, Andrei Kuzmenko, Trevor Van Riemsdyk, Hendrix Lapierre, and Caden Korzak. On paper, to me, I'm not going to lie, Blake, this feels like a step backwards.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things there. Like, obviously, we're going to get into the coaching, and we're big Dan Muse boosters here, so I can give the guy the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, losing Anthony Mantha, I think, even though he was just uber efficient and definitely going crazy with his percentages there, I still think that was a valuable player. One of the big departures that I am low-key concerned about is Parker Wotherspoon. I think that, he didn't make a face, folks. It's good. All right. I think that his pairing with Erik Karlsson is one of the reasons why Erik Karlsson was able to have the type of season that he had. And now, that's gone. And I am low-key concerned about that for Karlsson in particular. So I think that's potentially, kind of a step back there for him. But in terms of the arrivals, like, I know you love Nick Robertson, Nicky Bobby, so I'm excited to kind of hear your take there. Big Kuzi, whatever. Maybe could be a good power play performer. And then Hendrix Lapierre, I'm a fan of in Dynasty, right? I was happy to see him get traded here, only because I hope that maybe he gets a little bit of run. He was really having a hard time in Washington just getting on the ice. So maybe as a 4C or I don't even know, 3C here in Pittsburgh, if he can play his way into that, I'm interested to see what that player does. But yeah, pretty blah offseason here for the Penguins.
All right, let's talk about the coach. Dan Muse returns as my favorite coach in the NHL. I've talked about it enough. I think anybody who's followed anything Apples and Ginos over the past calendar year has heard me wax poetic about how incredible Dan Muse has been as the coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins. I do think we have a pretty big question still outstanding in terms of the efficiency that was demonstrated last year. How much of that efficiency in year one was for real? How much was just, a massive team-wide bender? We see seasons like this from teams all the time. There's at least one team every year that just, for whatever reason, the entire team seems to go on a massive shooting percentage bender, and the next year it all comes crashing back down. So that is a huge question, is how much of the increase was Dan Muse just being an elite coach immediately upon arrival in the NHL, and how much was just a bender that will go away as soon as it arrived. I think it's a legit question. I think the chance generation is legit that Dan Muse put forth. I think all that will stay. I do think we probably should bet on some regression in terms of the efficiency. What do you think about all that, Blake?
Yeah, I mean, I'm here for the Dan Muse talk. Like, this guy, he got a lot from very little. And something that I like to think about with coaches in particular is like their job is to extract the best from the players that they have. And I don't know that anyone did that better than Dan Muse did last year with the roster that he had. Like, he got a career high, amazing season out of Mantha. Evgeny Malkin turned back the clock, became an unbelievable play driver, like offensive juggernaut, right? Crosby had a good season, all these bits and pieces here. Carlson playing well. And yeah, I think that there's likely some regression coming, right? Like I think we have to do that. But there's so many things to like. Like he also, I think he got a lot of buy-in from the team there as well. Like, that's something you don't see all the time either. Like he came in with some type of vibe that was really hitting with the players there. And I don't know, that's when you got a guy like Sidney Crosby as kind of your culture vulture. Like he's the guy that doesn't make sense, but it rhymes. As like your culture kind of what's a word I'm looking for? Eagle, culture eagle. Thank you. Yeah, that works. Who's the culture eagle on this team? It's Sidney Crosby. He's the culture penguin. Why? Like, I love the Penguins logo, but like, why is this still a thing? It looks like something my son drew. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense. A penguin? Like, I guess they're on the ice. So that makes sense. Anyways, I'm sorry about this. All that to say, I think there's definitely some regression, but this guy was unbelievable. Like the finishing was huge. Third best finishing in the league at 5-on-5. Special teams, both top 10 in PK and PP. It's unbelievable, right? One of the things this is the last thing I'll say on Dan Muse that I really like that he did differently than Mike Sullivan is that he allowed the defense to kind of short the zone a little bit. So that means like coming in a little bit further from the blue line to keep play alive, as opposed to, if there's potential for a turnover, having the defenseman like back off immediately. That's what Mike Sullivan does. And we saw how that worked with the Rangers, right? But Dan Muse didn't do that. He said, go for it, guys. Let's get that puck. And they were able to do a lot with that. I mean, that said, they gave up, a good amount of chances on the way back as well, right? They were 22nd in goals against per 60 at 5-on-5. So yeah, really good on offense, giving up some chances on the way back, but it worked out really well. I'm a big fan, and I think that there's some pieces that can make up for the efficiency they lost with Anthony Mantha, and I'm excited to talk about some of these players.
Yeah, I think another question that I have with Dan Muse is, like, we saw what he did for Anthony Mantha, and Justin Brazeau to a lesser extent. Brazeau dealt with injuries, but can he find somebody else? Igor Chernyshov, I should mention as well, obviously a big one. Can he find that magic with someone else? Can he find that with Nick Robertson, for example, this year? I think that's another question that I'm very interested to see with Dan Muse, if that was, again, just kind of part of the overall efficiency of the team last year, or if that's a feature of Dan Muse's coaching. All right, power play. Crosby, Rust, Rakell, Carlson, all locks. Malkin was there for most of the year, but did come off the top power play unit later on in the year. Anthony Mantha found himself on the unit basically when Malkin was coming off. But Igor Chernyshov, given the end to the season that he had, the chemistry he found immediately, the potential for him to now just be a consistent member of this top six and a player that they really do rely on for significant scoring moving forward, I think Chernyshov at least has to be in the conversation for power play one time this year. Maybe not immediately from day one, but I think he's going to get on there, and it'll be interesting to see if he can make some noise.
Yeah, absolutely, buddy. I don't see it happening right off the start. I feel like if you got a healthy Malkin re-upped here, like they're just going to go back to the well. That did very, very well for them. Plus, you also have Big Kuzi in here, Andrei Kuzmenko, who's really only his only value is on the power play, right? Like at even strength, I mean, he's just an anchor out there, right? This guy's just, out there doing his hair, right? So I'm interested. Yeah, there's definitely, I think Chernyshov could do that. I think Kuzmenko could make some noise on top power play if he gets there. But I do think it's probably going to take injuries to get Chernyshov up there full time. And that might happen, right? Macklin has been injured in the past. But yeah, I mean, daily faceoff is showing Bryan Rust on the second power play unit. No, I don't see that happening daily faceoff. But this team has some good pieces that I think can perform on the power play. And like I said, they were top 10 last year, and I don't see why that would change.
Yep. Whoever it is on that top power play, I think you have to be very aware of anyone moving on or off that power play because of how good it was and projects to be. All right. Projections, let's dig in, starting with the man himself, Sidney Crosby, not just one of the best NHLers of all time, one of the most Calipigian NHLers of all time. 35 goals, 59 assists, 93 points for me. With the round down, you have him for 34 goals, 53 assists, 86 points. That can't be right. Got to be 96 points.
No, I got to get him up 1 point at least. Like we both had 87-point projections for Crosby last year. I messed up on this, and so did you.
I can't do math mentally anymore, but yeah. Suffice it to say, I think we both agree Crosby's going to be good this year. I do have him 7.2 points higher. Just confirmed that. So that is a pretty big difference between us, actually, on Crosby. I think if there's any player that I'm going to believe the efficiency on, it's probably going to be Sidney Crosby. And I think that's probably most of the difference between us here. Is that, I just can't get past it. What he's been able to do, the power play is going to center around him. Obviously, he's going to be given every opportunity to play all of the offensive minutes. They're going to give him whatever wingers he asks for. All of the things are going to align to make sure Sidney Crosby has a great season again. And so, yeah, I believe in Sidney Crosby for another 90-plus point season. But clearly you hate him, Blake, so let's have it.
Oh, God. What am I supposed to say to that? The man's a national treasure, and you're just tooting right in my face. All right, but that's fine. Crosby's the man. I feel like our projections here are kind of bookending what he's probably going to do. I have total faith in the guy as well. But, yeah, I did bake in a little bit of regression. This guy shot 18.1%. I'm just looking down the list here. Only one other season did he shoot higher than that, and that was in 2010-11. So the Dan Muse effect, Nate, maybe. I don't know about that. But, yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a little bit of regression, goal scoring. Obviously, we know how he plays with Rakell, and Bryan Rust. So that's a fine line. Do they keep it going, or maybe do they switch things up to try and balance it out? I don't know. But Crosby's going to be fine regardless. I'm just baking in a little bit of goal scoring regression. And also his ice time went down by almost a minute last year. And I don't really see that kind of coming back. I've got him for 19.5 this year. What do you have him for? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, there's a couple things that are trending downward, and there's some efficiency that, yeah, he's 39. Like, I'm with you. Until I see him falling off, I'm not going to say that he's going to fall off. This is a guy that has adjusted better than any player in the league to remain relevant. Besides Alex Ovechkin too, I got to shout him out. But Crosby's still driving play. Ovechkin's not driving play. Crosby's out there like he's the main guy. He's the engine. So, I'm with it until it doesn't happen, but I'll find some way to get him 0.8 points. I got to get him up to 87 for my projection, and I would feel really good about that.
All right. Rakell is a guy I have for 33 goals, 31 assists, 64 points. You have him for 29 goals, 31 assists, 60 points. I am finding myself pretty into Rakell this year. I know he's been a guy who's been rumored to be shipped out, things like that, but I'm not seeing it. If Pittsburgh's going for the playoffs again, and as long as they stay at least in the race, then I think Rakell will stay where he's at. He's going pretty late in drafts. This guy's going to shoot a lot. He's going to hit. He's actually going to block a lot too. Like, he provides a ton of stuff kind of under the hood. I think he's a pretty sneaky good pick this year.
Yep. I like that a lot, especially at the value that you're talking about. That's the real piece here with Rakell, because to me, he's very one note, right? In terms of like how he generates offense, right? Basically, his way to generate offense is playing on a line with Sidney Crosby, right? That's how you get, but I mean, that's more than enough, right? But this guy's really more of like, he's the hammer, right? He's the guy at the end of passes, shots, individual chances, but he's not really setting anybody up for anything, right? So if Crosby gets injured and then Rakell's playing with whoever, like, yeah, he's going to take a little bit of a hit there, I would say. But, you know, you brought up a great point. The periffs keep his floor super solid. I've got him for 104 hits. What are my blocks here? Oh yeah, for like 50 blocks. Pretty damn nice, right? And, you know, 218 shots. So he's giving you that floor. There is a ceiling case if he goes nuclear with his efficiency as well, which could happen in a Dan Muse coach team playing with Sidney Crosby. So I'm with you there. Definitely a great pick towards the end of your drafts.
All right, Bryan Rust, I have him for 33 goals, 43 assists, rounded down to 75 points. You have him for 34 goals, 39 assists, 73 points. When healthy, Bryan Rust is pretty bankable. He's going to play on this top line. He's going to play on the top power play. Zero chance in my mind he goes down to the second power play. Another guy who's going to be over 200 shots. I've got him for 75 blocks. Like, he definitely is one of the better forwards in terms of providing blocks too. So if that's something that matters for your league, then you're going to like what you get out of Bryan Rust.
He's so keen-o on beefarino. What a delicious cuisine-o. I'm sorry. You ever watch Seinfeld?
Not really, no.
It didn't age well, right? But you know what? I'm going down with the ship. I don't give a dang. Well, I give some dangs. That's fine. Anyways, Bryan Rust, yeah, this is a better version of Rickard Rakell, more dynamic, right? He's able to create some chances on his own. He's good with high danger assists, things like that. So he's a reasonable playmaker. But yeah, playing with Crosby, that's enough, right? And he's been a reasonable power play performer as well. I think he's one of these guys that kind of, you know, you forget about, right? I remember one year you posted something on Twitter. You're like, yeah, Bryan Rust, 70 points. People are going to be like, what? You know, they're going to be pissed about that or something. And people were, they're like, what Bryan Rust, 70 points? And yeah, this guy's paced for 74 points plus for the past 3 seasons. So I don't see why that would change. And I like the situation even more with Dan Muse at the helm.
Yeah. I love me some Bryan Rust and have for some time now. Let's move over to the second line. Tommy Novak, we have as the 2C here. I have him for 20 goals, 25 assists, rounded up to 46 points. You have him for 19 goals, 30 assists, 49 points. I think Novak's kind of in that Noah Cates vein where he's probably doing better things for other players than he is for himself for fantasy purposes. But you've always loved Tommy Novak, so let's have it, Blake. Why is Tommy Novak going to go nuclear in the year of our Lord 2026?
Well, first off, I want to clip that. All right. Nate's giving a Noah Cates comp to Tommy Novak. All right, folks. Those players could not be more different, Nathan. All right. You should know that.
For fantasy.
All right. Okay. Well, their usefulness for fantasy, maybe. All right. Maybe. Okay. But they're completely different players. And Novak does all the things that I love. This guy's a microstat king. It's unbelievable. Every time I say microstat, I was thinking, I can't go into that right now. Yeah. I lost it. Sorry. But the microstats are unbelievable. What I'm talking about is play driving at an elite level per game, like a per 60 level, right? He's not a guy that gets a lot of ice time. He played, an average of 14, 17 last year, but I am somewhat confident that he's going to get a little bit more time. He did play just under 16 minutes in the last 21 games of the season there, playing with Macklin and Igor Chernyshov. Yeah. That'll play. They moved Macklin over to the wing, and then we got Tommy Novak in here. When I'm waxing poetic on microstats, it's because players are entering the zone and getting chances at a high rate. Their volume of zone entries per 60 is really high. High danger assists, deflection assists, rebounds created. Tommy Novak is elite in all those. Like, not just good, he's elite. He's in some really rarefied air there. In terms of the microstats, and Corey's data has, a good chunk of time there. So I trust that data. It doesn't mean a damn thing at the end of the day. Honestly, it just means that this is a player that, if given the opportunity, I think can really produce for fantasy. His efficiency's been okay. But what I'm really excited about is the potential for more ice time, right? He's not going to get any power play time, but more ice time at even strength with Chernyshov and Macklin, that'll play. That'll absolutely play. I got him for 49 points. He had 42 last year. I mean, what are we doing here, Nathan? This is good stuff. Well, you got Novak for 46. See, we're simpatico here. We love Tomi Novak. That's how we say it. But yeah, all that to say, I'm a big fan of what this guy's doing under the hood, and I think he's going to get a bit more deployment, and so we can see more of that goodness, can't we, Nate?
Yeah, I agree that like the microstats don't lie. Tommy Novak definitely drives play. I just don't know that he's that efficient with what he's creating for himself. Maybe in a best case scenario, if he was playing with some like really elite finishers, you could see a little bit more of his potential there.
Evgeny
Again,
Malkin, Chernyshov, elite.
I don't.
I don't
I
know.
don't know that I would call either of those players elite,
Oh,
but definitely good.
Hall of Famer, but whatever.
Okay, but he's also 40 years old or whatever
Oh,
it is now. But
okay. Now you're getting hurtful. That's fine.
uh, anyway, Tommy Novak, what can we say? Good player. Probably not going to be on a lot of fantasy rosters this season. Evgeny Malkin next up, 27 goals, 52 assists, 79 points for me. 27 goals, 50 assists, 77 points for you. It feels tough to rank Malkin this highly, to project him this highly, but I mean, you look at what he did last year, limited minutes, super efficient, drove a ton in and of himself. Like, it really does look like everything was pretty warranted that Malkin was able to do last year. The biggest question for me is if he's able to hang on to power play one all year, or if they do look to take him off that, even if it's at times like that, will definitely kind of keep down his potential ceiling here. So how do you weight that? Like, do we think he's on power play one 70% of the year, more, less? Where are you at?
I think that, yeah, I'm with you that if someone comes off, maybe it'll be Malkin, right? So we should kind of adjust our projections accordingly, but I still think he'll be there for, 55, 60% of the year. And that'll play. But yeah, the move to the wing, I think, is a good situation for Malkin just because it's more taxing to play center, right? Like you said, he's 40 years old. This guy's, he's got rickety knees. They're rooted. I don't know what else is going on there. But yeah, I think that getting him to the wing and having like a real, who I think is a pretty damn good sniper in Igor Chernyshov, and then a play driver like Tommy Novak, like that line. I went over to Money Puck. That line, it had the best expected goals for percentage at 5-on-5 for the whole team, for lines that played over 100 minutes together. So that line was really, generating a ton of offense and suppressing offense as well. So I like the opportunity there. I feel like we have to regress. Like, his numbers were ridiculous. The microstats as well. Like I said, Tommy Novak had amazing microstats. Malkin's were even better. He just went nuclear. I don't know what happened. Like, yeah, Dan Muse like slipped him some special sauce, or I don't know what's going on here, but special drink, right? I don't know. I have something in my head that's not coming to fruition, but yeah, chance assist, shot assist. This guy's an elite facilitator, play driver, and transition guy. Malkin being a huge transition piece last year with the Penguins was a huge boon. So all that to say, I feel like we have to, similar to Crosby, respect what he did last year. And until I see him not doing that, I'm going to continue to think that he's kind of capable of that.
All right, Igor Chernyshov, I have for 27 goals, 33 assists, rounding down to 60 points, 29 goals, 27 assists, rounding up to 57 points for you. I like Chernyshov a lot here. It always feels a little bit icky to project a guy out for a full season, based on a pretty small sample size, all things told. But like you say, the sample size that we do have was very, very good when he was there on that line. And even kind of taking that back a step, you still end up with a pretty solid projection for Chernyshov. This is 60 points for me with 14 power play points. If he were to be on power play one, I mean, let's face it, a lot of these players don't have the greatest injury track record. So if that's something you buy into, then you've got to imagine that there's a pretty good chance Chernyshov spends a decent amount of time on the top power play unit throughout the course of the season. And if he's able to get to biz there as well, it's pretty easy to paint yourself a path in which he's over 20 power play points and pushing 70 points in a best case scenario.
Yeah. I think, yeah, you're right. The power play is really key for where he ultimately lands, right? And I think there is a pathway there. If you look at what he's been able to do historically, like his career high power play points was 6, and that was last year, right? So, like you said, it doesn't feel good to kind of project a guy that didn't really, like hasn't shown us a bunch, right? And then, came to a new team. So trying to figure out what's going on there. But I really think he was stifled in Columbus. That's very clear. He was on the outs and came over here and really made a difference, right? 22 points in the last 20 games. That'll play. Almost 17 and a half minutes average time on ice. That'll play. I mean, this guy's got speed. He's got a great shot. And I think, yeah, like I was saying there, the power play, 6 was his career high. I've got him for 13. So that's another 7 points right on the top. And that's with power play 2 deployment. So, yeah, I think there's a few ways for him to get there. And again, I really trust Tommy Novak and Malkin in terms of play driving. And Chinakov's no slouch there either. He's also like pretty reasonable defensively. That could be a really good line for Pittsburgh.
All right, Ben Kindell, I have for 19 goals, 22 assists, 41 points. You have him for 18 goals, 24 assists, 42 points. I like Kindell a lot. I think that one of the next 2 or 3 years, he'll probably take another step and establish himself even higher up the lineup. Maybe that's after kind of Malkin ages out here, or Crosby, or both. But I do think that Kindell has top 6 potential and maybe even finds his way onto the top power play unit at some point in the future. Don't think it's on this iteration of the Pittsburgh Penguins, but it's definitely a guy that I'm watch listing, if not for this season, then for future ones.
Yeah, not too much to add. For sure, a player of interest. I mean, as a rookie, center comes in, plays over 15 minutes, 10 points on the power play. You'd love to see that. This guy's able to drive play, right? It's at a young age. It's really good to see. He's a really smart player, underrated, physicality as well. So you'd love to see that. But yeah, I just think there's more development that needs to happen here. So I agree with you. I don't think that next season is going to be some big fantasy smash, but I'll definitely watch this him. I think this is a player that could easily get moved up the lineup. What if they don't like Tommy Novak there on the second line? Like, that's very plausible. Tommy Novak has played himself out of good positions in multiple teams that he's played with, right? So there's something going on there. I could see Ben Kindell jumping up to the 2C there and playing with the big boys, and that's really gonna do something for his fantasy numbers here. So yeah, like the player, I'm definitely watch listing.
All right, the wingers on that potential third line here, Justin Brazeau, who I have for 17 goals, 22 assists, 39 points, and Nick Robertson, who I have for 19 goals, 20 assists, and 39 points. I think of the two, Robertson has a higher ceiling. I think he's got a better shot, more likely to use it. I think Kyle Dubas, being his former GM in Toronto, goes a long way towards the reason that Robertson was acquired to join the Penguins here. And I think that Robertson also, like, if the Dan Muse effect on these third line players is real, Robertson is exactly the kind of mold of player that I think that could work with. And so I do think that there is a best case scenario for Nick Robertson, even if he stays on the third line, where he has, like, you remember when Trevor Moore had that one pop off season from the third line? Like, I think that's a potential outcome for a guy like Nick Robertson, especially in a Dan Muse system.
I like that comp. I think that's really neat. That was a really unique third line there in LA that year. They all kind of got to biz. I think it was Arvidsson, Moore, and like Deneau. That was their third line, and they were outperforming the top 2 lines at times. So, yeah, Nick Robertson. I'm interested to watch it. I like what you're saying about Dubas kind of being like this, kind of being his guy, and getting him to try and let's get this back on track. Obviously, this guy's got a wicked shot, and there's some other things to like too. But again, it's going to be deployment based. But if he gets to play with Big Kuzi, oh my God, that's going to make it even worse. Okay, so get him away from Big Kuzi. But and I love Big Kuzi, don't get me wrong. But yeah, it's a nice swing to take on a player that I think has some offensive upside.
All right, you did a projection for Andrei Kuzmenko,
I
and a
didn't
pretty
shoot.
healthy one. 22 goals, 24 assists, round down to 45 points. That is pretty hefty, so I think you might have to explain yourself here, Blake.
I don't know that it needs an explanation, Nathan. All right. I think we know the talent. No, I have to explain it. I'm sorry. Well, for like, this is a player that I think will fit in where he needs to in this offense. They picked him up for a reason. They didn't, if you go out and sign Andrei Kuzmenko, it's for a purpose. You need to get him into a position to be offensive. And so it wouldn't surprise me if Andrei Kuzmenko saw like a reasonable amount of power play time. I've got him for I put him for like 2.5 minutes on the power play. Right. So I've got him kind of working in there as like one of those forwards. Right. And I got him for 15 power play points, which might be a little spicy. Maybe it's spicy. I don't know. But I mean, this guy's had 4 straight seasons of double-digit power play points. So it's more just about the deployment. But I don't have that much of a kind of case for Andrei Kuzmenko. Like he has 45 points. He's a very efficient player. I've got him shooting 17% as well, 15 minutes average time on ice. It's kind of business as usual. This is what he's done for his whole career. And the Penguins targeted him. So that just gives me a little bit of confidence that he's going to get put into a position to succeed, because that's what Dan Muse does, right? That's what he did with all these other players. He's recognizes who he has on his roster and he puts them in a position to succeed. And what does that look like for Andrei Kuzmenko? I'm not sure. Right. But playing with Ben Kindell is kind of a good start. I think that's really nice. A good play driving center, like I said, who maybe takes a step this year. So yeah, all that to say, I think he gets some power play time and gets put in a position to succeed. That's my 2 cents. We'll edit this out in post. I don't give a damn.
Yeah, I don't share your optimism on Kuzmenko. I do agree that if anyone could do it, it would be Dan Muse and this group that really does seem to identify what makes players work and tries to put them in those positions to succeed. It just seems like everywhere Kuzmenko goes at this point, there's a stretch of games when he arrives that everything is working. He's scoring points, particularly on the power play, and everything's hunky-dory, and then it falls off a cliff immediately thereafter. And so even if he does have relevance, I do think it would be for a relatively short period of time this season. Erik Karlsson, I have for 16 goals, 53 assists, 69 points. Pretty nice projection, if I do say so myself. 15 goals, 49 assists, 64 points for you. So I'm a little bit higher there. I do agree with your point about Parker Wotherspoon. I actually think that was one of the best unforeseen marriages in terms of D partners across the league last year. And the Penguins' D depth chart is pretty weird. They have, by my count, 5 right-handed defensemen in their top 6 currently, and I just don't know what that's going to look like. So I think it's a tough thing to figure out right now, and I think that could affect Karlsson. But at the same time, like we saw it with Karlsson at the end of last year, like the talent is not in question with Erik Karlsson. He can absolutely be a point per game player if called upon to do so. The question for me is not, who he's going to play with and if that puts him in the best position to succeed, because if he's going to score points, he's going to score points, and it's not going to matter. He could be playing with Morgan Riley and he could still put up points. Sorry for the shot there, Morgan. Erik Karlsson is a guy that I just refuse to doubt, given what he showed us last year at his best. And so I'm going to potentially take him in some spots if I need that defense, if he's in that, those mid rounds where he is probably going to be the later of those players taken, just because of some of the questions that people might have. He's not like the sexiest name anymore. So I think there might be some cases where he goes a little bit later than some other defensemen who I might rate similarly, and I'll be happy to take him there.
Yeah, to me with Karlsson, it's all about where you're getting him, because I'm 6 points off of where you are there with him, or 5 or whatever. And I do think that who he plays with makes a difference. It definitely makes a difference. Karlsson is, he's aging, right? This guy's 36 years old. It's not prime Karlsson that can just do whatever he wants. And he's also, I don't think under Dan Muse, like he doesn't really want him doing that the way that he did in his last year in San Jose, right? Just ripping around the ice, doing whatever the hell. He has to kind of play a certain way here. And I think Parker Wotherspoon was a big kind of unsung hero in the way that Karlsson played and was able to activate comfortably, because Wotherspoon is such a good skater as well. He's a really good mobile skater, and they basically got him for a bag of pucks. It was insane. It was a great move they did there. So I am curious to see what they do. We've got Trevor Van Riemsdyk in here, who may have to play on his offside to play with Karlsson. And if that's the case, those are completely different players, Wotherspoon and Van Riemsdyk. at the very least, I think there'll be some growing pains when he's kind of adapting to a new partner there. I'd like to see him play with Sam Girard, but I mean, I think those are their two best kind of offensive defensemen, and I'm not sure that they want to load up the line like that. Like they'll just get caved in out there, on transition and rush defenses. That wouldn't be good. So we'll see. It's something I'm keeping an eye on in training camp. But yeah, like where is Karlsson going now in the ADP, APL ADP? Because like I said, I think that's really going to be the biggest key for me.
Early 7th round.
All right. I mean, you taking Erik Karlsson, you taking Porter Martone. What do you say there, Nathan?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's more telling where he's going amongst other defensemen, right? Like he's going after all the other guys that I would consider him to be relatively similar to, the Miro Heiskanens, the Josh Morrisseys, the Mikhail Sergachevs, like all those kind of defensemen. I think he's pretty similar to, and he's going after every single one of them. So that's the point where I will be more than happy to take a swing on a guy who scored 27 points in his last 19 games of the season.
Yeah, he did.
Chris Letang, last one here, 5 goals, 29 assists, 34 points for me, 6 goals, 29 assists, 35 points for you. I don't think either of us are super interested in having Chris Letang on our teams this year. He will put up over 100 shots, hits, blocks, but like I think the points will be fine. I think you can stream them. If Karlsson were to go down and Letang was on the top power play, then sure, I'll take him at that point, but in a normal power play 2 role, we've seen his minutes come down a bit. Like I think the most arrows are pointing down with Chris Letang at this point in his career, and I'm just not interested in taking those swings, at least in the draft.
Yep, I was low-key interested in Letang last season as kind of like a last pick. Like let's say your D was real thin and Chris Letang's still sitting there. Yeah, because he was getting power play 1, I remember last year. But yeah, it's just another year older. This guy defensively, he's getting walked out there. It's twilight time for Chris Letang, I think. So yeah, like you said, if he gets power play 1, Erik Karlsson goes down, yeah, we'll take a ride. But other than that, it's strictly just kind of a peripheral streamer.
All right, top 3 targets, Blake, give it to me.
Oh, yeah, buddy. I got Rusty. Bryan Rust is number 1 for me. I like Bryan Rust. It's just because he's such a boring pick and no one considers him to be the level that he's at, right? To get a 70-point player, I feel like I get him off waivers in like half my leagues during the year. Like, why is Bryan Rust here? This makes no sense, right? Because he's injured all the time, probably. But yeah, I like Bryan Rust there. Rickard Rakell on a strange erotic journey from Milan to Minsk. And also number 2 on my list. Yeah, again, we talked about why the value there. Great late round pick for you. And then Tommy Novak. I got to shout out my boy. I think there's potential here. But yeah, I'm not holding my breath, but I think, we'll get to see what this player is capable of doing in a higher up role on a good team.
For myself, number 1 is Rickard Rakell going in the 10th round. I just think that's super safe. All the peripherals I mentioned, I'm just into that price for sure. Igor Chernyshov, I think, has the highest ceiling to outperform in his best case scenario, and so I'm pretty into that. He's going super late, so you can basically take a free swing on him late in your drafts. And then Evgeny Malkin, again, going pretty late because people don't want to take the old guy, they want to take the new hotness, but I'm pretty happy to also grab him going at the back end of the 10th round in APL drafts. All right, we've reached the halfway point. That means that you should pause this for a moment, head over to applesandginos.com/APL and find out what you need to know to make sure you are registered for the Apples and Ginos Patron League this season. If you were in the APL last year, you do still need to register. I want to make sure everybody's aware of that. You need to go, basically everything is laid out at the website there, but basically you're going to have to head into the Discord. You're going to find the channel called APL Registration, and you're going to follow the instructions in there, and that's how we get to biz. Make sure you get in there. We are going to start putting people into leagues and setting up the drafts at the beginning of September. We got to get everybody drafted before the season starts, which is earlier this year. At the end of September, the season actually gets underway, so we got to make sure drafts are starting on time. So make sure you are getting yourself registered for the APL. It's going to be bigger and better than ever this year. We are super stoked for it. I'm kind of low-key pumped to have a slow draft again this year. Last year I didn't have any slow drafts, and this year I'm kind of pumped to have something to be doing throughout September.
I love it, man. Yeah, some people complain about slow drafts, but I like it. It just means more time for me to think about my picks, right? And kind of feel really good about that. Like, do you ever? I know we draft so much. Do you ever get like, when you're on a 1 minute pick time, you're like, oh, and then you still, even with our preparation, you're like, oh, I wish I didn't do that.
Yeah, I've had some picks like that. I'm trying to cut down on them, obviously, as everybody is,
Do
but
your best.
slow draft is going to be a fun wrinkle this year, one that I haven't done in a while, but excited to get into it, excited to meet everybody out there in the wild of the APL. All right, Blake, San Jose Sharks. Let's talk about it. Obviously, some pretty big changes to this team. Key departures here: William Eklund, John Klingberg, Mario Ferraro, Shakir Makamadulan, Timothy Lojegren, and Philip Kurashev are key members of last year's squad that won't be there this year. Key arrivals: second overall pick Ivar Stenberg. Looks like he will join the team immediately. Mason Marchment they sign in the offseason here. Darnell Nurse comes over via trade from Edmonton. Jacob Trouba is signed, and Michael Kesselring they acquire from Buffalo. So big turnover. It does seem like they very intentionally tried to build an NHL caliber defense after operating without one for much of the 2025-26 season. Do you think they've done enough? Do you think this is a net improvement? How are we looking here, Blake?
Yeah, it's an improvement for sure. It might not be the one that everyone wanted. I always think like, man, the draft and like San Jose's draft, that was unbelievable. You're just like, well, San Jose's going to be a dynasty and like, for the next 5-10 years, no problem. And then, the next thing they do, like, Mike Greer was feeling his plums. He's like, you know what? Let's pick up Darnell Nurse and sign Jacob Trouba. It's like, what? Why did you do that? I mean, I think, Darnell Nurse and Jacob Trouba are going to be factors for this team, and they bring, a certain style, right? And they are NHL caliber defensemen. There's no question there, but is it really what San Jose needed? Like, I'm not convinced of that, right? They definitely got some sandpaper here, but they still didn't get any transition play. Like, I'm not convinced that those were the right picks there. I do like Michael Kesselring, and obviously getting Stenberg in here for the year is going to be massive. That's why, William Eklund was expendable at that point. They knew Stenberg was going to come in and maybe just go 1-for-1, take his role there. And Mason Marchment is a really nice pick as well. This guy's been unbelievable in the middle six, wherever he goes, and he can play up and down the lineup, and maybe he even gets a chance to play on the top line there with Smith and Celebrini. That would be a really nice piece. So all in all, really, interesting. And I mean that. I actually mean that right now. I'm not just like, yeah, interesting offseason for San Jose. I think they definitely got better.
All right, behind the bench, Ryan Warsawski returning for his third season. I think the ask of Ryan Warsawski has materially changed this offseason. Now it's, can you get this team into the playoffs? Greer goes out and acquires some NHL defensemen. Theoretically, that's better on the back end. I mean, the top nine, even the entire forward core, looks on paper to legitimately contend with just about anybody across the league. Mm-hmm. So that part looks very strong. I think they've got to figure out how to play defense. Do you think that Warsawski kind of tips the scales in the wrong direction now? What we've liked about Warsawski for fantasy purposes is he's kind of just let the kids play and kind of figure it out. And obviously that's led to some good fantasy stuff for Celebrini in particular. But now do you think Warsawski tightens down the screws and we lose some of that? How are you feeling about Warsawski's philosophy heading into this year?
I think he's had a good run. Like, he was signed for 3 years, and this is going to be his contract year, Ryan Warsawski. And yeah, I think that's a really good point, that he was brought in to sort of develop these kids. And I don't know that Mike Greer thought it would happen this fast. Did he know that Celebrini would come out and just smash the way he absolutely did, and Will Smith to be like kind of the Robin to his Batman? I don't think so. So I really can't see, unless Warsawski sort of changes things a little bit. Like, I don't know that he's the right guy to kind of take this team to the next level, right? That's sort of the way I'm seeing it. And I hope I'm wrong, because he seems like, a really passionate guy, and he obviously got the best of a lot of players there in San Jose. But yeah, it's a great coach for fantasy, because he encourages D-men joining the attack, quick transition, right? Aggressive shooting, all that stuff. But I mean, the goals against were ridiculous. The team was 26th expected goals against, 28th actual goals against, the 5-on-5. That's gross. their offense, like it was buffered a little bit by just an absurd season by Macklin Celebrini. They were actually 25th in the league at 5-on-5 in expected goals for. But they finished at the 9th best rate. So all that to say, I think that this team has probably some more expectations now than there were the past 2 years. And I'm not sure that Warsofsky is the guy, the tactics, the kind of, the straight coaching to get them to that next level. So it'll be interesting to see.
All right, let's talk about the power play over here. I think Macklin, Celebrini, and Will Smith are the only true locks for this top power play unit. I think they got a lot of forwards that could lay claim to a spot. I think Igor Chernyshov, Michael Misa, Tyler Toffoli, Mason Marchment, Alex Wenberg was basically always on power play 1 all of last year, so he's definitely in the mix again this year. I think you've got to figure out who you think is the most likely there. Again, usually when there's this many guys that you can't really pick it out very conclusively, that usually results in some, back and forth and guys coming on and off the power play throughout the course of the season. So that's probably a little bit of what we're in for when it comes to this power play this year. I think probably the most interesting thing is who's going to be the quarterback of this power play. Are they going back to Orlov? Is that really what we're doing here? It could result in a couple of good fantasy weeks for Dmitry Orlov, but not likely to result in any sustained success for the power play itself. Do you think that there's other players in the mix here? Do you think there's any chance they run a 5-forward setup?
I think there's definitely a chance. I've been getting a lot of questions like, Darnell Nurse on power play 1, like Jacob Trouba. I don't see that. I don't, that makes no sense to me. I don't think either of those players are good facilitators. And then Orlov, we've seen proof of concept there, right? He's basically just a position holder at that point.
Yep.
And they went with 5-forward power play at times last year, but the problem was they had Celebrini out at the point, right? And you and I have talked about this, but for a power play to be successful, and these guys were 15th best in goals for per 60, so middling power play here, which should be a lot better when you got a guy like Celebrini out there, but it's because he's out at the blue line where most of the shots he's taking are low danger shots, right? You want your best player and your best shooter close to the net for high danger shots, and that's something that they definitely need to adjust there. What I'd like to see, and what did happen at a little bit towards the end of the year there, Luca Cagnoni. I hope I'm saying that right, but this guy did get a little bit of a look on power play 1. He played 6 games, averaged just under 3 minutes time on ice on the power play, but the profile is basically sheltered offensive defenseman. That's the way he profiles, and that's always a tough sell, for fantasy. Right, we see lots of these guys out here. Wow, this guy's a great passer, facilitator. He played 3 games last year. I said he played 6. That was the season before. So he played 3 games last year. Again, 2 minutes, 47 seconds on the power play. But yeah, I think it makes some sense to me. This guy is a really, really good facilitator. And, we've seen a guy like Shane Gostisbehere make that work. Right. He's not known for his defense. Like, he can play well in sheltered minutes, but you're not putting him up against the other team's best players. Maybe Luca Cagnoni can do that. Right. He averaged 18 minutes average time on ice. That'll be fine. I'm not projecting like a huge season. I did project him for, 36 points. And we'll talk about that, and power play 1 in 19 minutes average time on ice. So all that to say, I think that there's a ton of variance, and it's going to be really hard to project anybody on that power play besides Celebrini and Smith. And we're going to have to wait and see a little bit, but we did our best, folks.
We absolutely at least attempted to do our best. One more name we should mention there, Sam Dickinson did have a 90-point season in the OHL. Last year was basically told not to worry about offense, don't play on the power play. We'll just let you figure out how to be an NHL defenseman. You can argue if that was the right idea or not, but I think it was at least a situation where Dickinson has more offense than what was demonstrated last year. I don't know that means that all of a sudden this year they're just going to turn on the tap and now he's power play 1. It doesn't seem like the most likely scenario, but I should at least mention there is a possibility there and we should be aware of it. All right, projections here. Celebrini off the top, 48 goals, 65 assists, 113 points for me, 44 goals, 63 assists, 107 points for you. I have made this point before. Celebrini was unbelievably efficient last year, and at some level, you do have to expect some regression from that. But I am also not in the business of betting against truly elite NHL talent. And if we've established anything about Macklin Celebrini at this point, it's that he is truly elite, even at this young age. And so I do think he's worth the pick. I was kind of leaning towards Draisaitl at fourth overall, just for the safety there. But after going through it, Celebrini at this base projection for me just comes out higher, so much higher than Draisaitl on a base projection basis in APL scoring at least, where I think I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and take Celebrini because, like, who's to say that this is the ceiling too? Like, we could see another step from Celebrini. I think it's not the most likely scenario, but it's at least one you have to entertain.
Yep. It's hard to project that. I get, especially at this pick, like we're talking about the 4th or 5th overall pick here. And, it's a cliche saying, but you can't really, win your draft with the first couple of picks, but you can definitely lose it, and it's like, I don't know. I want Celebrini too. Like, I'm playing in 10 leagues. So if I had, I think I've said this already, but if I was playing in 10 leagues and I had the 4th overall pick, I'd pick Celebrini 4 times and I'd pick Draisaitl 6 times. That's how I would operate there for fun. But I really do think if I'm trying to win, I want to go with the safety of Draisaitl. But that said, yeah, this guy's a wagon. He's going to be unbelievable for his career to come out in your second season and do what this guy did. It was special to watch. This guy's a special player, and I didn't expect it, right? After a 63-point rookie season to just go nuclear for a 115. So that said, like I mentioned, all the stuff about the San Jose Sharks underlying metrics, and that matters to me. It really does. Like they were over their skis in terms of their finishing. Their goaltending was terrible, right? Their penalty killing was terrible. I feel like it could be, they shored up their defense a little bit, but it not in a way that's really going to help Celebrini. I don't think. Like, what helps Celebrini is he goes back to get the puck and skates it up right through all 3 zones. He's just doing everything. Now we got some guys that can maybe pass a little bit better back there. Does he see a little bit less, puck touches in the neutral zone? Probably not, but maybe, right? I just think, I only backed him down. Like, I've got him for 107, right? That's still a massive, massive year, but I'm with you. I would love to see this kid just go off, get up into the 140 range. Give me the Kucherov stuff. Give me the McDavid stuff. Let's see a true just giant out there, which he will be eventually. But I don't know. That's in the wheelhouse this year. I just don't feel comfortable projecting it quite yet.
All right, Igor Chernyshov we have as the potential top-line left winger here. I have him for 21 goals, 25 assists, 46 points. You have him for 24 goals, 19 assists, 43 points. Chernyshov did play on this line with Celebrini and Will Smith a decent amount last year across the 28 games that he played with the big club. I like Chernyshov. I think he's got a ton of potential as being a pretty good complement. Big dude, 6'2", 195, being a good complement to both Celebrini and Smith. He won't turn 21 until November of this year. Young guy with a lot of potential. Still obviously got to deliver on that potential, but we did see some good things pretty much immediately when placed on that line. I'm not going to sit here and say that, for sure, Chernyshov is this guy. I think if I had to guess at like the percentage of the season that he would spend on this top line, I would still probably put that under 50% because I do think there'll be some rotation throughout the year. I think Celebrini and Smith will be a duo for pretty much the entire year, except for a few spots here and there. But I do think that the left wing side of things will probably rotate a bit through. But the upside for Chernyshov is the potential that it works pretty much like it did when he first got there, and it just continues to work because he's gotten a little bit better over the offseason, put in the work, and he's ready to go. And that kind of upside potential is the stuff that you are really looking for in your late rounds. So I got a lot of time for Chernyshov in the late rounds of your drafts this year.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He's a prototypical kind of power forward type of guy. I mean, I'm just looking at his elite profiles or elite prospects profile right now, saying shades of Pavel Buchnevich. Not exactly a power forward, but I don't mind the comp, like an efficient shooter. This guy's really good creating chances off the rush, things like that, that's what Celebrini does. He's really good at that, right? He's very good in transition, and he's kind of that hammer, right? He's that physical presence inside. He's that board battle guy that I think Celebrini and Will Smith could absolutely use. So the fit on the line makes sense. It's just how does he perform? I don't feel super comfortable projecting a huge breakout. Like I've done that in the past. I'm like, yeah, I love this guy. 60 points, bang. Like, no, I agree with everything he said. I think that we have to slow roll it a little bit, but if he does play on that line for the majority of the year, I could see 55, 60 points, like pretty easily, right? Because those are two elite offensive players, and I think his skill set fits what they do, but it's all going to depend where he's deployed. And I think, we probably got him on power play too. I think that's where he goes.
All right, Will Smith I have for 29 goals, 48 assists, 77 points. You have him for 25 goals, 47 assists, coming to 72 points there. I think Smith is a guy that will be a point per game player in the NHL. I'm not so certain he gets much higher than that, like the 90 plus season. Like maybe he has a season or two where he hits 90, but I think that more likely than not, you're looking at Smith as a guy who lives in and around the point per game region. That's plenty good for fantasy. I think that Smith is probably pretty fairly valued. I think everybody's pretty hip to Will Smith after what he did last year. I don't think you're going to get a massive value on him in your drafts this season necessarily, but still a player that you've got to be aware of. He's going, looks like in APL drafts, at least he's going in the 8th round. Seems roughly about right. Not a guy with a ton of peripherals to offer, but if he's going to score in between, 70 to 75 points, somewhere in there, then I think you're going to be pretty happy with that in your 8th round.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, you look at this guy's micro stats; they're really good as well. What jumps off the page is his ability to facilitate. Right, that's what he's really good at, and he's playing with an elite player in Macklin Celebrini, and that is really the key piece here. I do think that Will Smith can produce away from Celebrini, but obviously with Celebrini is much better for his fantasy, development here. But like you said, I don't know that there's much more ceiling than point per game, and also peripherally that is a little bit rough. Like this guy's allergic to hits, 16 hits in 69 games, not nice. He's not blocking anything out there. A little bit more shots last year, so that was nice to see, but if he's not scoring, or if San Jose goes through a rough patch, like Will Smith is going to be rough for a little bit. And that's, I think at the cost you're getting him, that's fine. Right. But if he goes much higher than that, I'm probably going to look elsewhere. But yeah, great player. I hope that power play kind of gets cooking as well, because that's another area where I think Smith can pop off. He did, like I said, 69 games last year, 17 power play points. I mean, how many power play points did you get him for this season?
I've got him for 24.2 power play points.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, me too. I got him for 24. So that'll play. That's a really nice piece. This is a great offensive player. Great deployment. I'm definitely interested.
All right, Michael Misa, we have here on this 2C. I think the middle 6 here is probably pretty interchangeable in terms of the ice time they'll see. So if you want to call them 3C or 2C, you can do that how you see fit. I have him for 19 goals, 27 assists, 46 points. You have him for 24 goals, 26 assists, and 50 points. Last year was kind of a mixed bag for Misa. Obviously, young player coming straight into the NHL. Took a bit to adjust. 21 points in 45 games. I don't think he was just being absentious. I mean, Warsawski didn't want to play him a whole ton, under 13 minutes average time on ice. I think this is the year that you expect Michael Misa to take the next step and to get into this range that we're talking about. That's why we have him at this level. I think the minutes come up, and I think he gets into this level. But I think we're probably still a year, maybe 2 away from seeing fantasy relevant on a regular basis. Michael Misa, how do you feel, Blake?
Yeah, can't really disagree with much there. I think that I've got him actually projected as the 3C to start the season. So I've got him with, what is this? Mason Marchment and Kiefer Sherwood kind of to start out. And I like that. I definitely think that he will be moved up to that 2C, like once he sort of gets his feet wet a little bit. But starting with, Marchment and Sherwood, like those are 2 really good, like puck hogs or, puck hounds. Sorry, they'll be able to get in and get that puck, get it to Misa. He's obviously got some really great facilitation as well. So I could see that really working. But yeah, this is with Alexander Wenberg here. I think you don't have to rush Michael Misa up the lineup, right? And we saw the same thing with Will Smith in his first season, right? Obviously, he was getting the load management treatment, and maybe Michael Misa was getting a little bit of that as well. He wasn't missing games here, but like yeah, they were kind of slow rolling his deployment. So I see a bigger role for him. Obviously, I've projected him for 50 points, 11 on the power play. So I'm seeing him getting some time, and they're rotating in there, and starting him at 3C, but eventually getting 2C, and we'll take it from there. But yeah, could be a little bit before we see a bunch of relevance here, especially when you've got a stud like Celebrini as your 1C, and he's going to be just chugging minutes out there.
Right, Ivar Stenberg next up, 24 goals, 36 assists, 60 points for me, 19 goals, 36 assists, 55 points for you. I like Stenberg a lot. I think that there's also a pretty good chance that he's a guy who asserts himself enough to the point where he gets the Celebrini Smith first line treatment. Again, a guy who could be on the top power play as well. I've seen some scouts say, like, this is a guy you got to get on your top power play. So whether or not that happens immediately in the first season is a little bit up for debate, but definitely somebody who will be in the mix regardless. Had 33 points in 43 games in the SHL, which is generally a very tough league for young players coming into their NHL draft year. So very, very strong numbers for Stenberg, and very, very highly regarded in terms of his all-around game, not just his ability to put pucks in the net. So I think this is a guy who is going to be a Warsawski favorite sooner rather than later. Will play, I would say, at least second-line minutes is what I would project him for, with upside for top power play, with upside for first line.
For sure. It's hard for me to get excited about rookies. Obviously, I'm excited about Stenberg. I think, like, this guy could have went number one. There was talk about him going number one. So like, there's a lot of acumen here, and I think he was a better overall, like all around player than Gavin McKenna, right? That I think that was pretty well documented as well. But you're lopping off a little bit of that offensive flair and and potential there by picking up Stenberg. But yeah, to me, I love the player. I'm interested in the player, but I really have a hard time getting behind drafting him unless it's at a really good value. And in some of our mock drafts, I've been taking Stenberg, I've been taking McKenna, but it's well after pick 100. So where do you start to feel comfortable picking a player like Stenberg on this iteration of San Jose, knowing kind of what the middle six, especially the wingers, look like on this team?
Yeah, I mean, he's going in the 13th round in APL mocks currently, and very happy to take a second overall pick in the 13th round and just see what might happen there. Obviously, if you're drafting a little bit later, closer to the season, and we're getting word that he's getting power play one looks, that he's getting line one looks, then for sure he's going to start shooting up draft boards, and he very well should at that point. I think over the course of the season, you'll probably see, like I said, a few different players get up on that top line. So at the very least, I think he'll have a lot of streamer relevance this season. Colin Graff next up, 21 goals, 23 assists, 44 points for me, 15 goals, 26 assists, rounding that down to 40 points for you. I like Colin Graff, the player. It's pretty hard not to enjoy his story, but not a guy I think will have, sustained fantasy relevance. There were times where he got the Celebrini treatment. I think with this kind of new influx of talent coming into this team, those days are probably mostly behind him. Maybe a few shifts here or there, but mostly he's probably going to be a middle sixer on this team moving forward. So a guy that's easy to like, will be over a hit per game most likely, but not a big time shooter, and not a lot of upside to severely eclipse this projection.
Yeah, there's not a lot there offensively. I think I like the player, and I like the signing as well. And even the deployment. Like, if they get him on the second line here, I think the reason for Colin Graff to be there is to sort of stabilize that second line defensively, right? Like, we talked about players that are more important for the other players that they're playing with. And I think Colin Graff is that, right? Like you said, he did get that Celebrini treatment there, and that'll work for anybody, right? It was nice to kind of see his name out there, and he was able to secure the bag with a signing there. But again, I think his fantasy value with this group of forwards here, pretty muted, and I wouldn't expect him to even recreate what he was able to do last year.
Alex Wenberg next up, 14 goals, 32 assists, 46 points for me, 14 goals, 39 assists, 53 points for you. Yeah, I think Wenberg is not a guy that you're going to be excited about. Really just a streamer when you need one. Still think he's a pretty good bet for power play one, just based on how much Warsawski seemed to like him on that top power play unit last year. That
Mhm.
being said, I mean, they've added a lot of pieces. So, could Wenberg be the first guy out the door? It's definitely possible. Interested to see what his role is this year, but definitely going to be a steadying presence in the middle six.
Wenberg beats Stenberg. Stenberg, this is Wenberg. You ever seen this guy before? Wenberg, Stenberg. That's not even highbrow. What's lower than lowbrow? I don't know.
Unibrow.
Unibrow. Damn it. You noticed. I've been plucking. Dude, as I'm getting older, I went to the gas station the other day. I swear to God, I won't even tell my story. I went to the gas station. The guy behind the counter had like a 3-inch eyebrow hair. So, like, do you have mirrors in your home? I mean, what do you like? I brush my teeth. I'm looking at myself, right? If I saw that, I'd be like, oh, I got to deal with that, right? You got to nail that out of there. But yeah, what's this man doing? So it almost felt intentional. And then I was kind of like pissed at him because of it. I'm like, who are you? Like, what are you doing? Anyways, I'm sorry about that, folks. It's just, you know what? I will always deal with my eyebrow hairs. Anyways, let's talk about Wenberg here. Damn, that's a weird derailment. Yeah, Wenberg, again, steadying presence, like you said. I think he's going to eat. I think he's still going to play a ton of minutes. And I do think he's going to get power play one. It worked well. Like, he got 15 power play points last year on a, like you said, a mid power play. So I think that he's kind of a safety net for Michael Misa. Even if they do put Misa on the second line there, I think it's going to be a short leash. If he starts to kind of falter a little bit, they'll want to get Wenberg in there, kind of stabilizing things. So, it's just a guy that's going to eat because he's going to get a bunch of deployment, but that's really it. If that deployment goes away, like, the numbers are going to crater. This guy doesn't generate a damn thing. He's a defensive presence.
Right, Mason Marchment, I have for 25 goals, 36 assists, 61 points. You have him for 21 goals, 30 assists, 51 points. This is one of our biggest differences for sure. I think probably part of this is me just believing in the efficiency of Mason Marchment a fair bit. I do think they like this player. I do think that they view him as a potential complement to Macklin Celebrini too. So, although I would say I think Chernyshov, based on the chemistry exhibited last year, probably gets the first look with Celebrini, I do think there's going to be a significant chunk of the season where Marchment is playing with Celebrini. And we've seen Marchment be super efficient in low minutes before, so I don't even think that even if this kind of projection comes true where most of his season is spent alongside Wenberg and Sherwood, I still think he could put up a pretty solid season in those moments too. So you pace together, maybe 20 games with Celebrini where he scores close to a point per game. I think that's possible. That gets him 1/3 of the way to this, and then he's got another 60 plus games to rack up another 40 points. I think that's definitely possible for Marchment, and I just kind of believe that last year's situations, Seattle, Columbus, these other players, I don't think that's indicative of what Mason Marchment is capable of. I think we are going to get a better indication of that in the San Jose system with these San Jose players.
Ooh, planting your flag with Mason Marchment. Who would have thought of this? I'm not there with you on this player. I think that he's a great supplementary player, and he has been efficient in low minutes. But last year he played 17 minutes and 22 seconds, right? And yeah, that was between two teams, and one of them was Seattle. My God. But yeah, 54-point pace after a 62-point pace the season before. And even in his best years in Dallas, where he had a wagon of a third line, which was Matt Duchene and Tyler Seguin, he wasn't really getting up to kind of the 60-point range. So I'm having a hard time getting there. If he plays with Celebrini, yeah, okay, no problem. I'll absolutely, stipulate that. Like, if he gets consistent time with Celebrini and Will Smith, I think 60 points is fairly easy for him to reach, honestly, because he doesn't have to drive it, right? But I think if he's on a different line, like we've got him as a left winger on the third line there, Kiefer Sherwood, you've got Wenberg, Marchment, and Sherwood. So what if that's his deployment? That's a far cry from Tyler Seguin and Matt Duchene. So I think that's where I'm at with it. Yes, he's a very efficient player and a very, very good signing for the San Jose Sharks. He might be my favorite signing that they did. Like, I think, and they locked him up for term. Like, this is a guy that can definitely make a difference in the locker room, on the ice, tilting the ice. But in terms of his actual offensive production, I'm not sure that he's going to be able to even be as efficient as a new face in a new place on this team.
All right, Kiefer Sherwood, I have for 19 goals, 17 assists, 36 points. You have him for 19 goals, 13 assists, 32 points. Obviously, if you're taking Sherwood, you're taking him on the basis of the fact that he's going to be around 20 goals, and he is also going to throw a monstrous amount of hits. I have him for 356 hits in my projections here. So, Kiefer Sherwood, banger league beauty. I don't think there's a ton of upside here, especially given all the additions for him to, get up the lineup. I don't think there's much of a chance that he plays with Celebrini really at any point throughout the season. I think that's something I'd be confident in saying. So, yeah, I think what you see is what you get with Sherwood. I think he's going to be a very valuable real-life piece. I think he's going to be valuable in bangers leagues for sure. Probably a little less valuable in your points leagues, though.
Yep. We've seen the ceiling already, and it was with the Canucks, and it was last year as well. Like that 41-point pace or 42-point pace, that's it, right? That's what this guy has. And when he was in Vancouver, he was sometimes getting 20 minutes a night, because they were so injured and whatever. So, yeah, this guy's a perfect third liner. Him and Mason Marchment on a line. Ew. That's going to be a problem, right? So, yeah, I'm a big fan of the player, but definitely not for points leagues. He's not going to get any opportunities just for the hits.
All right, Tyler Toffoli, 19 goals, 23 assists, 42 points for me, 23 goals, 26 assists, 49 points for you. This is a player who saw his ice time decrease significantly towards the end of the year, under 13 minutes in the last quarter of the season. And now with all these additions, it seems to me like he's slated for a bottom six role, more likely than not. Very unlikely to get back up there with Celebrini, where he did most of his better work in previous seasons. So, yeah, I'm pretty low on Toffoli. I think even the best case scenarios are probably not super fantasy relevant. Seems like you're a little bit higher on him. Do you see more of a bull case for him?
I wouldn't call it a bull. I'd call it a calf case for Tyler Toffoli. Jeff Gillooly, right? Sorry. Yeah, I think the big difference between our projections is I've got him sticking on power play 1 as kind of that, steadying presence on the left flank there. He's a right shot. He does that well. He had 15 power play points last year, 57% power play share. Yeah, they've got some bits and pieces, some good players coming up here, but they still need, they can't just have a lottery ticket at every position, besides like Celebrini and Smith. They got to get someone in here who's done it before, who knows what to do. And he's a good power play performer. And I think at the very least, he'll get a decent amount of power play time before he's moved off. But yeah, we've got him as kind of a fourth liner here. And I think this could be his last hurrah.
All right, let's get through the defenders here. Sam Dickinson, I have for 26 points, 5 goals, 21 assists. You have him for 3 goals, 22 assists, and 25 points. Not going to be relevant unless they do make an abrupt left turn and put him on that top power play, which I think it's live. I just think it's a pretty low percentage chance that happens. Jacob Trouba, I have for 9 goals, 25 assists, 34 points. You have him for 4 goals, 20 assists, and 24 points. This is actually the biggest difference in our projections, even bigger than the Marchment difference. I think I've got him for, it's only 3.2 power play points, so most of it is coming at even strength. I just think that this is a team that's going to score a bunch of goals, similar to what they got in Anaheim last year, where Trouba was last year. I think Trouba's going to play a ton of minutes here is the other piece. I think that, when you acquire a guy, when you pay him $8.5 million, I think it was per year for the next little bit, a veteran guy like this, you're paying him, even if he's not like super effective. And we've all seen like the Twitter cards that go around highlighting how ineffective Jacob Trouba might actually be under the hood. But I still think he's going to get a ridiculous amount of minutes on a team that's going to score a lot of goals, and I think he's going to have between 30 and 35 points at the end of the year.
Wrong. Okay. Big time wrong. No, that's fine. But to me, I see this kind of resurgence that he had last year, 35 points in 81 games with Anaheim, because he was paired with Jackson Lacombe the entire season, who is an elite transition defender. I mean, does it all in all 3 zones. Trouba was just, he's just out there beefing people out of their mind and getting to soft space on the ice and putting the biscuit in the basket. So he's not going to have that here in San Jose. That's a problem, right? He's going for he was, I'm sure he was kind of a leader in the dressing room and on the ice there, but in terms of actually driving play, Trouba wasn't doing a damn thing. he was kind of just staying back so Lacombe could do what he needed to do. And then Lacombe was getting back. It didn't even matter. Like Trouba was just happy to be there. So this signing to me was a real head scratcher for San Jose. It didn't make a lot of sense. And yeah, like 10 goals he got last year. He's not touching that. You got him for 9 goals here. I'm not sure how that happens. Yeah, I got him for 4, and I think that was generous. I just think that, this could go a little bit sideways. He brings things to the table like sandpaper and grit, and he's going to make the team harder to play against, but he's going to get walked out there on a regular basis. And he doesn't have a guy like Lacombe to kind of pick up the pieces. So I guess that's my main concern with the offense there with Trouba. Obviously the defense doesn't matter for fantasy, but yeah, he's still going to bring you a ton of hits and blocks. And yeah, he did get 35 points last year. He did do that. So, I don't want to discount it too heavily, but I think new face and new place and no Jackson Lacombe equals a very sad Jacob Trouba.
Darnell Nurse next up, 8 goals, 22 assists, 30 points for me. 8 goals, 19 assists, 27 points for you. Again, a guy who's going to have a ton of peripherals, over 150 shots, over 150 blocks, over 150. What did I miss there? Hits.
What were you going to say? What? 150. That's a lot, man. You got to go to the doctor for that. Okay, they got medicine for that.
If that's happening to you, go see a physician near you immediately.
That's a lot.
Darnell Nurse, I am not going to be drafting him anywhere. This is probably closer to the best case scenario for him. Yeah, maybe your bangers cats, you want a guy who's doing this kind of stuff and putting up 30 points. He's got more relevance there for sure. But in your standard points league, there's just no ceiling. And that's what I said about Darnell Nurse last year. And then he had a bad year, and it was horrendous if you drafted Darnell Nurse last year. That's definitely a possibility this year once again. And I'm just not going to draft guys like that when there are plenty of other players that I think have real upside.
Yep. There's no need to pick up Darnell Nurse unless he's power play 1 for some reason. And that would be interesting, but he's never done that before. This guy's power play point career high was 9, and that was in 2018. So I don't think he's getting power play 1. He's good. He's a good shooter from the back end. I can see, I think you and I both have him projected for 8 goals. That's fine. That'll play. But yeah, I'm not interested at all. One thing I am watching, just because I'm a sicko and I like this kind of stuff, is what does his game actually look like when he's off a team that has McDavid and Draisaitl and sort of the aspirations that the Edmonton Oilers had? Now, I think, does his role change a little bit, or, he's still got Celebrini, but it's just something that I'm interested in, because I dig in on the analytics and I'm wondering how those will change based on what his role will actually look like with this team. So I don't even know where I'm going with that. I'm just asking questions into the ether. Nate, you got any response to that?
I do not. Dmitry Orlov, 5 goals, 33 assists, and 38 points for me. 5 goals, 32 assists, 37 points for you. Yeah, probably going to get at least some power play 1 time, which is what's holding up a good chunk of this projection for both of us, I'm pretty sure. Not excited about it. I'll say that, but yeah, I think you can stream him. You can have him as your 4th D if he is on power play 1. If he's not, you need to get him off your roster as soon as possible. You also like Luca Cagnoni, as you mentioned there. Your projection for him, 7 goals, 29 assists, 36 points if he played the full 84. I think that's definitely possible. I'm not convinced that even if he was power play 1 all year long, that it would be a worthwhile hold all year long. Yeah, I think given the fact that he's very likely to play very sheltered 3rd pair minutes whenever he's out there, he would probably be the poorest man's version of Shane Gostisbehere, and therefore not be super fantasy relevant unless he absolutely pops off on that power play. So yeah, you can talk about Orlov, you can talk about Cagnoni, or we can just go to the targets.
Yeah, you would like to do that, would you? I have something to say, damn it. Luca Cagnoni is the Tony D'Angelo of Brant Clark's. Oh God, this is terrible. I lost it. I'll figure something out. You got to help me out with that one, Nate.
Yeah, that one is irredeemable.
I'm afraid. Dang. I'm sorry about this.
All right, let's get into it. Top 3 targets, Blake. Give it to me.
Give it to me. You got it, Nate. Igor Chernyshov, I like the upside there. It's a nice swing late in your drafts. Is my number 1. Ivar Stenberg. I've got him as number 2. Again, I like your point. It's a really good swing to take. And then Luca Cagnoni. All right, get him in your life. Like I said, you like Tony DeAngelo, don't you? Well, Luca Cagnoni, his collar goes even higher. All right, he pulls it right over his head. He doesn't give a damn.
All right, top 3 targets for me are basically just the left wingers on this team in the order that I think they might play alongside Macklin, Celebrini, Igor Chernyshov, Mason Marchment, Ivar Stenberg. Basically, that's what I'm looking for with these 3. Who's playing with Celebrini, and can I get them in my life? All right, last team here is the Seattle Kraken. Unfortunately, this is a real NHL team that we have to cover for fantasy hockey. They have lost, well, I mean, Tolvanen hasn't signed anywhere. I guess it's still possible he could come back, but seems unlikely at this point. Jaden Schwartz, Jamie Alexiak also out the door. Key arrivals, Mackie Samoskevich comes over via trade from the Florida Panthers. Bobby McMann came over from Toronto at the trade deadline last year. They are definitely still looking for the player who can be the cynosure of the squad. They have not found that, even though they've attempted it with multiple players, most famously Jason Robertson, who did not want to go there whatsoever. Blake, how are we feeling about this roster? Do you feel great about them replacing 2 middle 6 forwards with another 2 middle 6 forwards?
That's just what this team needed. All right. It's a middle 6. It's not a middle 12. What the hell's going on? But, I do like the swings that Seattle has taken here. They're trying to make the team better. They tried with Panarin as well. So it's not for lack of trying, right? And it's a tax-free state. Well, I don't understand what's happening. You got Matty Beniers. The guy's amazing. Anyways, yeah, no, this doesn't move the needle at all. I do like the arrivals better than the departures. I'll say that. Samoskevich and Bobby McMann have a little bit of fantasy upside.
Behind the bench, Lane Lambert returns for his second season. Really has just seemed like another coach unable to elevate this forward core. I mean, it's hard to really blame Lane Lambert when you look at this roster up and down and to lay it all at his feet, but it does feel like Seattle desperately needs their own version of Dan Muse to really kick this thing off and at least find some players who are capable of hitting a new level. That being said, I still hold a grudge against any coach who won't play Jared McCann for the 20 minutes a night that he deserves, so Lane Lambert can kick rocks.
That's fine analysis, and I'm actually here for it. But yeah, this is, I'd like to get excited about Seattle, but for fantasy, this is really one of the worst teams. But again, to your point that you said right off the top of the show, we have to be able to find some value here because there are going to be weeks where Seattle has a good schedule and we're like, who do we pick up, right? So yeah, all that to say, this team was really bad offensively and pretty good defensively, right? They got some really good goaltending from Philip Grubauer, right? And Joey Decord. Wow, who would have called that? We did that too. All right. Well, we didn't, but a guy we know. All right. He did that. But brutal penalty killing for the Kraken as well. They had an epic collapse there at the end of the year. They were in a playoff spot and the wheels fell off, right? So I think that's on Lambert, right? He's got to get doesn't happen to Dan Muse, Mr. Lambert. All right. But yeah, this team offensively just pop gun offense, terrible. I don't even know what to say. It's just that they didn't have the ability to generate enough chances out there to be remotely dangerous. And, the power play disappeared at the wrong time. It was just a comedy of errors that had them kind of miss the playoffs, and they didn't really address those problems in the offseason. So I think Lane Lambert's on the hot seat here.
All right, the power play, very likely to see some sort of 1A, 1B splitting. Again, they did lean more heavily on the Vince Dunn unit under Lambert than they had in previous years, for whatever that's worth. That Dunn unit, Jared McCann, Jordan Eberle, Matty Beniers, Stevenson, and Dunn on the back end. In terms of players that I think could disrupt this unit, could, stake a claim to creating a real top power play unit, I think you have to look to the new guys. Samoskevich being the most likely in my estimation. I don't think Bobby McMann has any really power play related scoring skills. Most of his stuff is more like off the rush and using the fact that he's big and fast to score goals. Mm-hmm. So I think Samoskevich is the most likely guy if anybody is going to break into that unit and kind of create something new that we haven't seen there before.
Yep. I'm taking Samoskevich over Stevenson here. It's time. All right. Get this guy off the ice. When I'm digging in on analytics for Chandler Stevenson, it's so funny because everyone's like, he's pretty much the most useless player for hockey that there is, right? That is going all in across the board. So he must be a really good guy in the dressing room. Like he's obviously very efficient, but get him off the power play. And I think Samoskevich should get a shot here. And maybe that can equal something.
All right, the projections. Let's start with Matty Beniers. This is actually the player we have the biggest difference on.
Oh,
Blake,
no.
I have him for 21 goals, 32 assists, 53 points. You have him for 21 goals, 38 assists, 59 points. You love an inefficient guy with good micro stats. Talk to us about Matty Beniers.
No, you pretty much sold it there. Yeah, that's it. But yeah, like Beniers should be known for his defensive prowess, not really what he's bringing to the table here. I do think on a different squad, this guy would be this sounds stupid analysis. On a different squad, he'd be a different player, but that's true, right? Like this guy's a great two-way player. He's a budding playmaker, right? He can do that. Obviously, he does other things that I like zone entries that lead to chances, although not so much last year, but that's kind of in his bag. I just think that he is the main guy, right? So if Lane Lambert wants offense, it's going to go through Matty Beniers and Jared McCann. I think those are the two guys that I think are going to be driving most of the offense, and this team sorely needs it. So I'm not making a huge leap here, though. Like 50, what do I have for 59? Like, okay, I think, yeah, that's probably like the top of where Beniers goes. But I do like the player. The team environment is absolute trash, and it's hard to get excited about any of these players. But I think McCann, and Beniers, that's kind of where I'm at. Starting with Matty Beniers. Let's go.
All right, Bobby McMahon did find most of his time once he arrived in Seattle on that Eberle Beniers quote-unquote top line. I have him for 31 goals, 19 assists, 50 points. You have him for 32 goals, 19 assists, 51 points. I think this is a guy who can score 30 goals on this squad, especially if he does stick on that top line for the entire season. He's going to have over 200 shots. He's going to have, I have him for close to 130 hits. So he's going to do some fantasy relevant stuff. I do think he can score in this range of 30 goals, especially if he's with two guys that kind of more default to playmaking in Beniers and Eberle. So, yeah, I think might actually be like one of the better case scenarios league-wide for Bobby McMahon, because nowhere else would he be on a top line and getting these kind of minutes and this kind of opportunity. Yeah, I don't hate it for Bobby McMahon. I just don't think there's much upside beyond this projection.
Yeah, you can't even say much more than that. Like, yeah, it's a great situation for a guy that's kind of like a journeyman, you know what I mean? Like a journeyman winger that kind of landed on his feet here in Seattle, and he's going to get a good opportunity, like you said. But what does that even look like? Like their top line is like a third line in other teams, right? So yeah, it's good. He's going to get some deployment here. I hope he does get power play. Did you how many power play points did you give Bobby McMahon?
I gave Bobby McMahon 10 power play points.
Oh, very generous. I gave him 8. So, but yeah, good shots, good hits, good goals. Bobby McMahon. That sounded like a commercial.
Nice. Jordan Eberle, the captain here, 25 goals, 31 assists, 56 points for me, 25 goals, 33 assists, 58 points for you. Yeah, good streamer, Jordan Eberle. That's it.
I hate that we're ending on Seattle. This is brutal. It's absolutely brutal. Yeah, he's a good facilitator, Eberle, and I've got him projected with Jared McCann. I think that they'll probably go back to the well there. There were some injuries. I think those two play really well together. Again, if they want McCann to get going, you better probably put him with Eberle. So, yeah, what a 58 points. My God. All right. Yeah, let's move on. He's a streamer.
Chandler Stevenson, 17 goals, 38 assists, 55 points for me, 16 goals, 36 assists, and 51 points with the round down there for you. I think probably you're a little bit lower on his average time on ice than I am. I just think that coaches love this guy for no discernible reason, and he's probably going to be out there to get these 55 points.
I can't do it. Oh, my God. This guy's... He just is a no thought. Like... nothing happens when he's out there. It's just like, yeah, he's just going for a skate. He doesn't drive play at all. Like, yeah, I guess he's pretty fast. He's like a decent skater, so that's good, and he can facilitate, and he gets a lot of minutes in the past. But and I tried to take it down. Like I've got him at 19 and a half here, but it's just, yeah, you're not going to be picking up Chandler Stevenson. I've got him projected on the second power play. So if you even thought about picking up Chandler Stevenson, you better check yourself. Okay.
All right. Jared McCann here, player that has been an Apples and Ginos favorite in the past. I have him for 31 goals, 37 assists, 68 points. You have him for 33 goals, 35 assists, and 68 points. This is a guy who routinely projects for 60-plus point paces over the course of a season. It did seem like he was not necessarily a favorite of Lambert, which is a bit concerning. Started the season, in the 17-minute range and went down under 16 minutes per game by the end of the year, especially after McCann arrived and kind of took up that top line spot. So yeah, I hope that common sense will prevail and Jared McCann, as the most skilled forward on this team and the most likely to put up fantasy relevant production on a consistent basis, will actually get the minutes required to do so. But I don't think he's going to get much beyond this, just based on the fact that it seems like they're never going to give him big time minutes.
Yeah, things are trending downward, right, for Jared McCann here, especially with Lane Lambert. He was really efficient, and that kind of offset the lack of shooting. Like his shots went down, power play production down. Obviously, he missed some time there at the beginning of the season. It's rough, right? Because it's like, as fantasy managers, we're looking at it, we're like, it's right there. You like 32nd overall and expected goals for per 60 at 5-on-5. He's right there. Like, get him on the ice and get him the puck in a dangerous spot, and he'll do the rest. And it's there's a little bit of a disconnect there. I read some interviews with Jared McCann too, like postseason interviews. He's salty. He had some salty things to say. I'm going to butcher this, but he was kind of throwing some players under the bus on his team, like some of the younger players, things like that. He had some weird comments. And I feel like if he doesn't get off to a good start, I could see exactly what you described, like those minutes going down. Maybe he gets bumped down to the third line. Maybe there's a healthy scratch in there. Like, I could actually see something like that happening. I'm not projecting it, because I'm projecting them to try and score some goals. And if they want to do that, they need McCann out on the ice.
Matvei Michkov, I have for 22 goals, 22 assists, 44 points. You have him for 23 goals, 26 assists, and 49 points. I think if anyone does surprise in a real way this year, I think it has to be Michkov, who is obviously targeted by Seattle. There's definitely some good underlying stuff with Michkov with that profile, after playing most of his career so far on the fourth line out there in Florida. Now coming to Seattle, joins this group of middle six forwards, and we'll see what he can do and if he can assert himself higher up the lineup. I do think he'll be given some opportunity here in Seattle. Obviously, they paid a price to acquire him. He is kind of the marquee acquisition of the offseason for them. Mm-hmm. So there's got to be a little bit of gravity given that acquisition.
He's got some juice. Oh, yeah. And this is a guy that we've identified in the past. I talked about him last year in my kind of players of interest series there when he was with Florida. Micro stats look great. Right, this guy's a great individual shot and chance generator, good puck transporter as well. So all stuff that I like, and there's some good bangs there as well. It's just the deployment, and I do think that he's going to get power play time. So I'm kind of excited about that. Excited is not the right word, but yeah, I'm projecting that, and I think there's a little bit of stuff there that I'm interested in. But it's, I don't know. Is this a better situation for Michkov, do you think, that Matvei Michkov than when he was with Florida?
I think for sure it is. I mean, with Florida's top 9, there was no chance for Michkov to get the kind of minutes that he's going to get here in Seattle. And yeah, I mean, maybe this is the year where finally they identify who their best players are and they start to play them a little bit more and prioritize that a little bit more, and they prioritize the top power play a little bit more. Maybe this is finally that year and we could see a best case scenario. Hard to project that way given everything we know about the Kraken, but at least there is a bit more of a chance of that happening, I would say. Let's get down to the third line here. Shane Wright, 16 goals, 19 assists, rounded down to 34 points there. 19 goals, 20 assists, 39 points for you. I like Shane Wright, the player. I think there is a player here. I I mean, we've heard the rumors about him potentially being traded all off season here. Hasn't come to fruition as of yet. I would love to see what Shane Wright could do on a different team, get a new situation anywhere where there's more of a chance for him to score some points. I just don't know what to make of Shane Wright. I don't know if Shane Wright knows what to make of Shane Wright at this point in his career. The weird team bottom to middle six situation that he's been mired in. Yeah, it just feels like a guy who's not fulfilling all of his potential in this spot.
Yeah, it's really rough. I mean, anytime you're requesting a trade to the Vancouver Canucks, things aren't going well, right? And he must be a bit discombobulated, right? You go from a draft where you were supposedly the number one pick, you fall to 4, and then the team you're on is just, it's kind of like a bunch of spare parts, and it's continued that way throughout his entire career in Seattle. So it's a really hard place to develop. Like, he was an offensive player. Like, this is a guy that can get the biz offensively and bring some stuff to the table for fantasy, and he hasn't really been given the opportunity to do that. He got even less opportunity last year under Lane Lambert, and then subsequently requested a trade. So it'll be interesting to see how he starts the year. But I mean, 3C, that's not going to cut it, right? For a guy like Shane Wright, I think he will get traded eventually at some point, and that made the projection really difficult as well.
All right, Berkeley Catton, I have for 13 goals, 17 assists, 30 points with the round down. You have him for 13 goals, 20 assists, 33 points. Catton has potential. I mean, it feels like Shane Wright just a few years back on the development curve here. I think Catton has offensive potential, and that might be the kindest thing I can say about his fantasy prospects for this year. Again, I just don't see the path where he's going to get big time minutes or he's going to get top power play. The underlying stuff did not look good last year. It was his rookie season, so I'm not going to, say he'll never improve from that, but it's hard to project anything resembling a fantasy relevant season for Catton this year.
Yep. Player to watch. I mean, at this point, we keep saying it, but it's really hard to kind of suss out where these players are going to go and what their role is going to be and what's going to be expected of them from the coach. So 17 points in 66 games, that's fine. I mean, the ceiling is not real high at this point.
Capo Caco, I have for 16 goals, 32 assists, 48 points. You have for 16 goals, 30 assists, and running down to 45 points there. I think Kako is just another guy here. I don't think there's a ton of upside. Once again, I think he fits very, very neatly into this middle six persona that the Seattle Kraken have enforced upon every single player to play for them.
Yeah, it's just about deployment with Kako. He didn't get it in New York, and he's not really getting what he needs here in Seattle either. He had some bits and pieces, and I love to see that because I do think that he can be, kind of a bit of a hammer there, on his line. He's a decent forechecker as well, but it's just not. Yeah, we're gonna have to wait and see. I do like his season. He paced for 50 points last year. That's about as good as you could do on Seattle. So I think it's probably I would consider that a successful season for Capo Kako.
Vince Dunn, I have for 13 goals, 34 assists, 47 points. You have him for 13 goals, 38 assists, 51 points. I like Vince Dunn. I think he's a great player. I think on a better team, you could actually see him kind of cash in towards 60-point potential in best case scenario. But in this version of the Seattle Kraken, I think you're much more likely to get the version of Vince Dunn that scores around 50-ish points, 45 to 50 points. And he has decent enough peripherals, good shots, just over a block per game, not great hits. So he's not providing a ton, but an okay amount of peripherals. It's just a kind of like in that last tier of power play one defenseman, I would say.
Yeah, I'm taking a ride. I like Vince Dunn where he's going. I think there's at least he could hit 50 again, right? I've got him for 51. You've got him for 47. 50 will play for me where he's being drafted. I think that's a fine piece there. And there's ceiling for more if somehow Seattle figures it out, which we're not projecting. But something I do like about Vince Dunn as well is his ability to create individual chances and for himself. Right. He can drive play himself in that way. He's also really good in transition. So those are obviously things that I'm interested in, but for a defenseman, even more. So I do have a little bit of hope for a player like Vince Dunn. I think that, there's pathways to a better showing than what we're projecting here. I guess I'll say it that way.
Adam Larsson I have for 7 goals, 17 assists, 24 points. You have him for 6 goals, 18 assists, 24 points. Obviously, the interesting piece with Larsson is decent banger stuff. 109 hits, 162 blocks is what I have him for. That's really the only reason you'd be interested in Adam Larsson this year. Lastly, Brandon Montour, who I have for 15 goals, 27 assists, run it down to 41 points. You have him for 14 goals, 31 assists, 45 points. I like the peripherals that we get from Montour, particularly the shots, 226 shots, 138 hits, 103 blocks is what I have him for. So good peripheral stuff from Montour, but definitely I would say at this point behind Vince Dunn in terms of offensive production and probably in terms of power play time as well.
Yeah, for sure he is. Like you said, there's some good peripherals there that can really help you out. He's also should get double-digit goals. This is a guy like, if you think about Pokemon, like you got Shimon Nemec, right? And then when he levels up, right? Now you're looking at Brandon Montour, right? You're looking at a guy that can jump in the play, like what is that called? An evolution. Yeah, that's right. I know Pokemon, all right? My son plays. Like he evolves into kind of a fourth forward in a lot of cases where Brandon Montour will jump into the rush. He's not afraid to shoot, obviously generates a ton of shots and chances for himself as well. So again, another great defenseman that would be so much better on a different team.
All right, top 3 targets, Blake. Give it to me.
We did it. All right. Imagine if I just take like 20 minutes on this part, Nate. Would you be upset with that? He just shut his screen off. Number 1 is Jared McCann. I like the upside there. Number 2, Bobby McMahon. This is McCann. McMahon. Stenberg, Wenberg, right? See what I'm doing here? Mac, I got him. McCann number 1, McMahon number 2, Sam Miskevich number 3 for all the reasons we mentioned.
For myself, same 3, same order. Yeah, I think McCann is the most talented guy here and the most likely to put up a fantasy relevant season. McMahon, especially in your bangers cats, can do some stuff. Sam Miskevich, if anybody truly surprises on this team, I think it's most likely him.
Yeah.
We did it, Blake. We got to the end. If you made it this far with us, click the link in the description, join the Discord community. Tons of people talking fantasy hockey all day and all night in there, especially this time of year. If you could like, rate, review, subscribe, comment, whatever you can do really does help us out. That is all we've got for this episode. So hopefully it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard came from Natural Stat Trick, and all the micro stats you heard came from all 3 zones. Many thanks to Matt Creamer for supplying music for the podcast. That's it, folks. Much love.